Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Hokage Naruto was sealed inside Bleach. Before I start, please support for more amazing content and do consider subscribing to my channel and share this video with your friends. This is written by Anki-Shai and link in the description and support writer. Let's start the video. Prologue. He was looking at the little form in his arms. He couldn't help but admire the blonde hair and peaceful expression that made the baby irresistibly adorable. The baby was the best version of Kushina and himself, the spiky blonde hair, the round face, the blue eyes and, finally, the power. A flash of sadness crossed the face of Minato. He caressed the cheek of his Sun who stirred but did not wake up. Naruto, the Yondaime Hokage murmured in reverence. Kushina laid at home fast asleep while he stood with his Sun in the Hokage tower. He was not ignorant of what was happening outside these walls or the oncoming battle. He was stalling. Just for a moment, he wanted to enjoy the weight and warmth coming from Naruto before he had to go out there and outside his window, Minato could see as all the available forces above Chunin rank were making their way towards the gates of the village. The roars of the beast could be heard and Minato could sense the heavy weight of Ryatsu surrounding Konoha. The form of the Kyuubi no Kitsune could be seen in the distance, his tail swinging around as another surge of power made the land trembled. "My son, I don't have much time," Minato whispered, looking down at the sleeping face. "I wish I could be there to teach you how to use your powers, to see how you become stronger than me." Minato smiled with a hint pride. "I can already feel id energy pouring out of you in incredible waves that would make Ni-chan and Aji-san jealous." Minato pulled out a small necklace made of silver with a pendant of the same material. The pendant had the appearance of a coin. On one face was the form of a dragon and a lightning bolt, on the other was the kanji for 12th. He let a bitter smile form on his face before he put it on his son. The necklace was a little long for the baby, but it didn't matter. Minato trusted his wife, Jiraiya-sensei, and the old man would do the right thing and protect Naruto and tell him the truth about this day when he was ready. However, Minato was not fool and, if for some reason they failed him, he knew that the necklace would guide Naruto to the right people. "Minato." The blonde Hokage turned around to see a serious Jiraiya looking at him with concern. Beside his old sensei was the former Hokage, Sarutobi Hiruzen. Both men stood there with their eyes fixated on the little figure on the Hokage's arms. "So, this is my godson," said Jiraiya, approaching the man with a soft smile. "He is really handsome. Just wait until you're all grown up. The great Jiraiya-sama will teach you all you need to know about women." Sarutobi and Minato chuckled at that commentary and for a moment the imminent danger was forgotten and replaced with a small display. Jiraiya then lifted his gaze and his eyes locked with those of his student. "Minato, you're going to use it, aren't you?" Minato nodded seriously and Jiraiya sighed, defeated. "Would you do you know the risks? Are you sure you want to sacrifice yourself? What about Naruto and Kushina? What are you two talking about?" Sarutobi asked turning towards Minato who sighed speaking to Sarutobi. "I've been working on a sealing technique," said Minato. "This will stop the Kyuubi. And if everything goes well, this will also help my son to protect our world," he added to himself. An uncomfortable silence followed the Hokage's words. Sarutobi was looking at the man in front of him with a critical eye. "Then teach me." "I would do it," said the former Hokage after a moment of consideration. "It is noble of you to want to sacrifice yourself for the village Minato-kun, but I will do it. I am old, but I still have enough strength in me to make it work and seal the beast inside of me." "You don't understand, sensei," Jiraiya replied sending a sympathetic look to his former sense. "The beast can't be sealed in a grown-up man, your Tenketsu is far too developed and it isn't capable of holding the amount of chakra the Kyuubi is made of. Even if you do it and die in the process the Kyuubi would escape again and we will go back to the beginning." "You mean?" Sarutobi's gaze fell on the baby in Minato's arms and the former Hokage understood. "But your own son." "I really appreciate your offer Sarutobi-san, but I have to do this," Minato stated firmly. The man started walking away, but before he left the room he turned around to smile at the two of them. A strange kind of pressure suddenly enveloped the two older men and made it difficult for Sarutobi and Jiraiya to breathe. They looked directly in the blue eyes of Minato that were shining with an inner blue light. "This is something only I can do, for it requires a sacrifice that neither of you possess. Naruto would be the perfect jailer, please take care of Naruto, from this day on he should be seen as a hero." With a mumbled hiration the blonde Hokage disappeared, leaving behind him two mourning and shocked men. Jiraiya then snapped out of his astonishment and, with Sarutobi close behind, went to follow Minato. By the time Minato got to the gates with Gamabunta by his side, the Anbu were organizing a counterattack while some other high-ranking officers were helping the wounded amongst the villagers and the other ninjas. "Taichu?" A woman with a cat mask and purple hair approached her captain. The man however didn't move, nor did he answer his subordinate. He stayed there looking at the battle ahead of them with only one thing in mind. "What are you planning to do, sensei?" Minato returned his attention to the battle, his eyes shining with the blue energy inside him. Gamabunta grunted, looking up at the Yondaime Hokage, then back to the Kyuubi. Minato Dono, are you completely sure? The summoned toad asked the blonde man perched on his head. The Kyuubi no Yaku stood there with his tails waving around, smashing the trees around him down to the ground. The beast looked amused at the toad in front of him, and he let out a roar that could be heard in the village. Villagers and shinobi fell to the ground in fear. Well, Gamabunta merely frowned at this. Are you aware of what would happen if you died here? The seal would be broken. I know, Bunta, I know. But this is the only way. He is not a normal hollow and you know it. I know, I can sense it. Gamabunta spread his legs and took his hand to his sword. Very well, then let's do this. Minato smiled, embracing Naruto protectively against his chest before he went to release the seal he had on his right wrist. In the stories to come, many villagers and ninja alike would narrate the same basics of the story, if a little exaggerate. They felt a power like no other. It was a power that compete with that of the Kyuubi, and, when they lifted their eyes, they say the Yondaime Hokage with his white coat willowing to the wind around them. The battle afterwards was just a blur, and this sudden surge of power on the Hokage was what caught the Kyuubi's attention in the end. The demon looked at the man who was emitting that amount of energy, and a crazy smile appeared on its face. Shinigami. A roar of laughter left the mouth of the kitsune, and the beast started to channel its own energy. It's been years since I last saw one. Let us play now, Shinigami. As those words left his mouth, the Kyuubi launched himself into the attack. His blood-curdling smirk never left his face, and he was so distracted with the prey before him, he never noticed as Namikaze Minato worked with a series of seals with his free hand, while Naruto stirred restlessly in the arms of his father. Horde of Pure Souls Sirite Soul Society. Shibukayan, Fukuteichu of the 13th Division, and Yukitake Shurmtaichu of the same division were supervising the return of the squad of academy students that had been injured during field training. Apparently something had gone terribly wrong during the training, and some of the students they were bringing were either gravely injured or dead. A young black-haired woman appeared from behind the Fukuteichu of the 13th Division. Her eyes were scanning the injured students and some of the Shinigami of the 4th Division that were taking care of them. She was wearing a worried expression and was highly distracted, which prevented her from noticing the amused expression on her Fukuteichu's face until he put a hand on her shoulder and spoke in a firm but amused tone. "Ichiki." The girl jumped in surprise and she looked up at the man that was giving her a smile. "Something wrong? Kain Dono?" The girl bowed respectfully, unaware of the bemused expressions of Kain and Yukitake. "Sorry, sir, but I was worried." She let her eyes rest on the academy students once again, and the two men understood what she meant by that. "Look, Ichiki, But Kain's words were cut off by the heavy and thick snap of something ancient. Yukitake turned around and his eyes were wide open at the sight, but before he could say anything a bright white light surrounded the place where the Sinkamen connecting to the real world was. There was a moment of panic which was subsumed quickly in the face of command, in which orders were barked and the forces around the Sinkamen divided into two, one for the academy students and the other around Yukitake Taichu. Once the commotion passed and the brilliant light subsided, the Shinigami found themselves in front of a big wooden door with a marble seal broken in front of it. "What the hell is that?" asked a random Shinigami. Many of them turned to look for instructions from their Taichu, just to find him with eyes wide open and a shocked expression on his face. "Taichu?" asked Kain, who had his hand on the hilt of his Zanpakuto. The others imitated their Fukuteichu and got ready to act. "Be at the ready but do not do anything unless I say so," said Yukitake Taichu wearily. Then the man turned to Rukia. "Rukia, I want you to go immediately to Yamamoto Sateichu. Tell him that the elemental Sinkamen of the advanced training grounds has been unsealed. Real World Karakura Town Urahara Shop 11 p.m. As always your timing is perfect, Yoruchi," said a man with a bucket hat and a green cloak. His eyes were hidden under the hat and his voice was serious and worried. Behind him appeared a black cat along with a tall man with a thick mustache and a worried expression. The cat walked towards them and the three of them were now standing in front of what seemed to be two pillars that were at each side of a wooden door with a broken seal on it. "What happened to the seal, Kisuke?" The cat tilted his head approaching the door. "I don't have any idea," replied Kisuke. He looked down at the cat before saying, "There are three possibilities as to why the door has appeared and the seal is broken and, personally, I don't like any of them." They went silent for a moment before Kisuke sighed in defeat. "I am sorry, but it would be only a matter of time before they start acting and send the 2nd Division to investigate. What do you want me to do?" Yoruchi inquired, glancing at a smiling Kisuke. The man let a sad smile appear on his face. "I don't think he did it on purpose," said Kisuke, adding, "Something must have happened to make Minato-kun break the seal. Something bad indeed. Minato-sama gave everything for this to work." Kisuke and Yoruchi turned to Tessai, who had spoken for the first time since their gathering. "Very well, I would look into this. Be careful, Yoruchi. Like I said, they will send someone into this place, and either way it has been almost 50 years since the place had been patrolled. Do not worry about me, I would be very careful. And with that the black cat opened the door and entered. It didn't take more than 5 minutes to completely cross the passage that guided her to a place. The signs of battle and death were still visible. Yuruchi stood there for a moment trying to catch on Minato's presence, but after a few minutes she tensed up. There weren't any traces of Minato's Ryatsu, but she was feeling something familiar, something that in a way screamed Minato, but wasn't his completely. What have you done, Minato? She stood there with her eyes closed, analyzing all the possibilities. I guess I have to find out, she said before running towards the familiar yet strange Ryatsu. Back in the shinobi world, and to be more exact in Konoha, a blonde newborn baby was resting in the hospital. Around him was a guard of 4 Anbu that were ignoring the angry exclamations and shouts coming from somewhere in the village or the rushed steps of the medics and nurses outside the room. The blonde was sleeping peacefully, and just like his guardians, he was ignorant of the big commotion not just in the Hokage Tower, but in 2 other worlds that in the near future would change his life forever. Naruto's childhood, the first meeting, and the cat called Yuruchi. After through surveillance and investigation on the shinobi world, Soul Society declared the land a training ground once more. This world, however, was meant only for high-ranking officers in between the Gate 13, and even then it would be under strict and control measures to ensure not only the safety of the captains and their teams, but also to protect Soul Society itself. Some had been highly surprised by these measures, including some of the captains that were not there when the training grounds had been available for everyone. Not many remembered what had happened, or the treason that hit the heart of Soul Society at some point. The Central 46 and the Seitetsu did, and that was enough. Besides, the shinobi world had a curiosity that the real world didn't. In this land the hollow and plus activity was higher than normal, and some of the souls and hollows seemed to hold memories of their lives as shinobi. If the second squad had been more careful and better informed about the history of Soul Society and the Kazama family, they would have tried to be more thorough with the people inhabiting the world. And in this research they would have found the future of the former heir of the Kazama family and the fate of his son. But fate had another thing in store for the young lad. And for that, Shihun Yuruchi was grateful. Uzumaki Naruto's existence had been kept a secret from Soul Society thanks to the high-ranking officers surrounding him and the focus of the Shinigami on the hollows around this world. Yuruchi found the baby quite easily, if not for his soul energy at least for his looks and the total destruction of his village. The former captain of the second squad found the child surrounded by heavy protection and a familiar necklace hanging from his neck. At that moment, Yuruchi knew Minato was dead and his son was in great danger. Her investigation revealed the most important aspects of Minato's life in the shinobi world. As soon as she shared with Urahara her findings, it was quite evident she would be needed it to protect Naruto. The seal he wore on his abdomen and the strange attack by the Kyuubi was highly suspicious, and Urahara along with Yuruchi thought there was more to the attack than a mere coincidence. SI had been quite impressed by the seal on the child's abdomen. He could recognize the mark of the Kazama clan in there, and if his theory was right, both child and demon would fuse at some point. This revelation had confused Yuruchi at first. Why would Minato seal such a dangerous creature inside Naruto? Just what kind of creatures were these Biju that even Urahara was shocked at this revelation? For only positive thing Yuruchi could see was that even if Naruto had access to the Kyuubi's power, he was still immune to the demon's influence. But would the Kyuubi be restrained once the seal starts to weaken? But her questions went unanswered, and Urahara merely shared his usual smile, assuring her that, for the moment, that was nothing they could do or worried about. And with this assurance in mind, Yuruchi decided her next step would be then to protect Naruto and make sure he was strong enough to face the dangers that await him. For Yuruchi knew that people didn't forget nor forgive, and many had already tried to dispose of the boy holding inside of him, the very creature that almost destroyed everything the Konoha villagers and ninja hold dear. And she would be damned if she allowed any of them to hurt him. Thus, most of her time Yuruchi stayed with the child, protecting him and, in the end, loving him. The Sandaime Hokage, for his part, had started his plan for Naruto's life. He intended the boy to be a good person and a good shinobi. But for that he would need Naruto alive, and that was why he was in his office with Kakashi's Anbu squad in front of him. I am sorry Hokage-sama, but I am a captain, and I am your commander officer, and I am giving you my permission to do it, interrupted the Sandaime. There was a tense silence after that in which Sarutobi Hiruzen sat there looking impassively at Kakashi. I'll do it. The Sandaime Hokage diverted his eyes from Kakashi to focus them on a purple-haired woman with a cat mask on. If it's not a problem, Taichu. Hokage-sama. I don't think that would be a problem at all, Nico-san. Thank you for offering to do this. The Sandaime commented standing up and walking towards the door. Nico-san, please follow me, the rest are dismissed. With one last glance behind her she turned around to follow the Hokage. Kakashi stood there for a moment, guilt and regret overwhelming him before he snapped out of it and disappeared from the Hokage's office. The Sandaime Hokage and the Anbu officer arrived at the orphanage down the street from where the hospital was located. In a small and cold room was a crib and in it little Naruto was sleeping peacefully. Curled up beside the baby was a black cat that lifted her head only to look at the newcomers before settling down once again. "Do not worry, the cat is harmless and it seems to like Naruto," said the Sandaime to a very bewildered Anbu. "This will be your mission until Naruto can have his own place and take care of himself. When you are on mission another shinobi would be put in your place, but from now is going to be your top priority." "Understood, Hokage-sama," said the woman, bowing slightly. "I want to thank you Yugao-san, I have a feeling that Naruto's life is going to be hard." And with that the Hokage left, leaving Yugao with a lot of questions in her mind. She walked towards the crib and let a hand caress the cheek of the baby softly. "It's good to meet you Naruto-kun. My name is Yugao and I would make sure nothing bad happened to you. 5 years later, it would be good to work with you." Naruto stretched out his hand towards a very confused Uchiha Itachi. A Sandaime Hokage and a woman with purple hair smiled softly at the introduction between Itachi and Naruto. They were observing the scene highly amused for Naruto was hardly this polite and Itachi was never one to show his real emotions. Yugao let her eyes rest on Naruto with a pang of regret. She wished she didn't have to go and that she could be by Naruto's side at all times, but the boy was growing up fast and she was needed on the field. It had been 5 years since Yugao was put in charge of Naruto's security and in reality she had finished her duty once the boy turned 4 years old and stayed in his own place. But she couldn't do it. She loved Naruto. There was something about him that warmed her heart and made her smile, and she knew this has everything to do with her being a surrogate sister and watched him grow up right in front of her eyes. "It's a pleasure as well Uzumaki-san." Naruto wrinkled his nose in dislike at the way the young Uchiha addressed him. "Okay, since introductions have been made, I think you three can retire," said the Hokage with a significant glance towards Yugao, who understood immediately what her duty was. "Very well Hokage-sama." Yugao and Itachi both bowed to the Hokage with Naruto waving at him with a toothy smile. Jai-san. "Goodbye Naruto." Itachi can you buy me some ramen?" The Sandaime chuckled and shook his head amused. Poor Itachi he didn't know the amount of ramen Naruto could eat. Sarutobi sighed and a frown appeared on his face. He was worried. He didn't doubt Itachi's skills, the boy had proven to everyone that he was a genius, but that sudden interest Fugaku had in Naruto, or at least in his security there was something strange about it, something he would have to comment to Homura, Kahaku and Danzo. Itachi didn't know that someone as small as Naruto could actually eat that much. He was really grateful that after the 5th bowl Yugao decided that was enough and she even offered to pay the bill. Of course, Itachi didn't let her. After all, he offered to pay for the food and an Uchiha never went back on his word, much less when it was made to a 5-year-old and a lady. They were walking down the street, Naruto a few steps ahead of them. Itachi noticed some of the glares and the whispers that followed the blonde boy. What surprised him the most was Naruto's attitude, he was smiling and walking as if he owned the street without a care in the world. However, Itachi also noticed the tension on Naruto's shoulders and that little gleam of alert that showed Itachi Naruto was aware of the negative attention he was receiving. The young Uchiha let out a smirk. He had heard from the other Chunin that the boy didn't have attributes to be a ninja, but now Itachi had to differ. Naruto wasn't stupid, just cunning. "Itachi-san," Yugao's voice broke into Itachi's thoughts. The black-haired boy turned to watch the young woman smiling down at him. "I want to thank you." "It was nothing, Yugao-san. I did promise I was going to pay for the food." "No, I didn't mean because of that, though I do thank you for that as well," said Yugao. Itachi frowned, a little confused. "I was talking about Naruto. He doesn't have many people that really care about him or that show him kindness." "I see. My father said that we shouldn't blame Uzumaki-san for what he has," Itachi mumbled with an expressionless face. Yugao smiled at that a little relief that at least the head of the Uchiha clan didn't have anything against Naruto and that his son had the same feelings. They didn't like nor dislike Naruto, they simply thought that it was foolish to hate the boy for something he was ignorant of and couldn't control. That was enough for Yugao. Now she could leave and left Naruto in good and capable hands. She knew that even with his 10 years Uchiha Itachi was very capable of the shinobi work. "That's good to hear. I already showed you where Naruto lives and now I am going to my apartment. Usually for security reasons I let him stay with me. I thought it would be easier for you if he just stayed in my apartment." "That would be fine, yes," Itachi said. "Would you stay with him tonight?" "Yes. Then I should start my duty tomorrow morning." "Okay, do not forget he has to go to the academy, so he would probably be there." There was a moment of silence when Itachi turned to see Naruto and a black cat that was watching him. "Iruchi-chan." Itachi was really grateful that he was a trained ninja, otherwise he would have jumped at the scream that could be heard down the street which earned Naruto even more scornful glares. The black cat jumped into Naruto's arms and the boy hugged the cat while wearing a soft and very calm smile, very different from the one Itachi had seen a few minutes ago. "What is that?" asked Itachi. Yugao giggled a little. "That's Naruto's Catwell, friend, according to him," said Yugao. Do not worry, the cat is harmless. Her name is Yuruchi and if you don't want Naruto to be angry at you don't mess with her. It wasn't the most intelligent thing he could say, but it was the only thing he was capable of at the moment. Kazama said that one day, a woman dressed up as a nurse tried to kill Naruto while he was still a little baby. When the Anbu and Hokage-sama arrived, the woman was unconscious over the broken door of Naruto's room, and the cat was there. Yuga said, shrugging after the explanation. That was all I could get. Since then, the cat would appear once in a while, and ever since Naruto could talk, he named her Yuruchi, and they have been together. How? I mean, the cat shouldn't be dead by now. Itachi inquired with a hint of confusion in his voice. Good question. I never stopped to consider that, said Yugao, but like I said, Yuruchi is harmless and Naruto loves her. So, if you value your peace of mind, don't bother them. I see. Well, if you said the cat is harmless, Itachi turned to see once again the black cat and he couldn't help but frown. There was something off about that cat, something that made him feel weird, but he didn't know what could possibly be. Yes, thank you again for taking care of Naruto, Itachi-san. It's my duty as a shinobi, and it seems like it's going to get really interesting, Itachi said, eyeing Naruto and the cat before directing his black eyes to Yugao. I'll see you in 2 weeks, Yuga-san. Don't worry, I will take care of Naruto. But that said Itachi turned around and started making his way back to the Uchiha compound. Itachi had a lot of things to consider after his first meeting with Uzumaki Naruto. There were so many things that could be said about the blonde boy and now about that cat of his. Why did Itachi felt so weird about that feline? It was a simple animal, nothing else. Good afternoon Itachi. The black-haired boy lifted his head to find himself face to face with his father, who was looking down at him with a curious twinkle in his eyes. Tell me, how did it go with young Uzumaki-san? Did you find anything interesting? No, it was pretty normal. It seems you were right, father, the boy has not idea of what he has or what he could do in the near future with it. Fugaku smiled at that and stepped aside to let his older son enter their house. Once in his room Itachi looked out the window and couldn't help but wonder at how easy it had been to lie to his father. Yes, Uchiha Itachi knew that there was more about Uzumaki Naruto that met the eye. But his father didn't need to know that. The next morning Naruto woke up at the sound of a soft and amused voice calling out to him. The little boy stirred in the warm and clean bed and let one eye open to see who was disturbing his sleep. It was a woman with purple hair and dark skin, her eyes were wide open and shining with amusement and affection. Naruto opened his eyes completely and jumped directly in the woman's arms. Yuruchi-chan. The boy exclaimed enthusiastically hugging the woman as if his life depended on it. Yuruchi couldn't help but hug him back. Nari-chan, how are you doing this morning? She asked. The boy lifted his head and smiled brightly at her. I'm okay, missed you a lot. But now you're here and my birthday is close. Said the boy, letting go of Yuruchi and jumping up and down. The woman laughed at his antics. Now, you don't really think I would forget your 5th birthday, do you? It is a very important date for me. Really? Asked Naruto and Yuruchi had to suppress the growl that wanted to escape her mouth. He shouldn't be surprised at that. He should be used to people thinking his birthday was special. Of course, it is and it seems this girl thinks so too, Yuruchi said, pointing to an orange enveloped with a big card that had Naruto's name written all over it. Naruto walked towards it with his blue eyes wide open and a shocked expression in his face. He stretched a trembling hand towards the gift and opened it very carefully, as if afraid that the gift could disappear or break at any moment. Yuruchi clenched her fists and her jaw tightened. She had wanted to take Naruto away from that world ever since she first saved his life, but Urahara had been right. Naruto was too young, and the consequences of trying to bring out the Shinigami inside Naruto were too dangerous to even consider doing so. Wow. Is it really for me? Yuruchi turned to see a pair of goggles in Naruto's hand. He was eyeing them with a huge smile on his face. She grinned, locking her anger tight in her chest. Yes, they are. Your friend left them for you with a card and everything, didn't she? Naruto nodded and hugged the goggles gleefully. These are so cool. Yes, they are. How have you been, Naruto? The serious question made little Naruto glance aside and then he let a grin appear on his face. I am better now that Yuruchi-chan is here. The woman ruffled Naruto's hair in an affectionate gesture. I am okay, now that I get to see you, brat. I am not a brat, in a few days I would be 5 years old. Oh, and that makes you an adult? Teased Yuruchi. Naruto wrinkled his nose and retorted, no, but it means I am older and not a brat. Yuruchi chuckled at that and knelt in front of Naruto. Okay, mister, then go and take a bath and get ready to go to that ninja academy of yours. Okay. Naruto was about to leave when he stopped and turned to look at Yuruchi. Yuruchi-chan, would you tell me one of those stories I like later? Fine, but I am not only going to tell you stories about Shinigami and hollows. Yuruchi looked with mischief at the little boy that was eyeing her curiously. What else are you gonna do? I am going to start your training. Yuruchi didn't have the opportunity to finish that sentence when a high-pitched scream resounded through the apartment and the boy started jumping up and down again. Yuruchi shook her head amused, observing as he babbled away running towards the bathroom to get ready. It was late in the afternoon and Itachi had been doing his duty as Naruto's guardian. It had been a very long day and it wasn't until then that the young Uchiha had noticed to what extent people could hate and discriminate. Naruto wasn't allowed in many of the restaurants or normal shops in the village. Those he was allowed in charged him prices that were higher than the actual price. The boys of Naruto's age weren't any better. Whether it was due to their parents' interference or influence Itachi wasn't sure, but they were mean towards Naruto, not letting him play with them, and usually fought him. Things only got worse as the week went by and people started to remember that fateful day 5 years ago. In that week Itachi had stopped 3 sneak attacks on the boy and punished the malefactors roughly for being such cowards and bullies. What surprised the young Uchiha was that the black cat Yuruchi that always seemed to follow Naruto and acted with hostility to those who glared at or bad-mouthed the boy. And Yugao had been right. Mess with the cat and Naruto wasn't the foul-mouthed boy everyone liked to pick fights with. But that wasn't the most intriguing thing at all, oh no. Uzumaki Naruto was always full of surprises. 2 days before the 10th of October, Naruto was sitting in a swing near the main park of Konoha. As always he was alone watching the other kids play or laughed with other kids or their parents. Sometimes Itachi felt the urge to go to the blonde and talk to him, but his duty forbade him from doing so. The black cat was sitting beside the blonde and Naruto was playing with the goggles he said had been a gift from Yugao. That was when 3 children 3 years older than Naruto approached the boy. They had scornful looks when they got closer to Naruto. Itachi tensed up, ready to act if he needed to. "You're on my swing." Naruto lifted his eyes to watch a black-haired boy who stared at the blonde child arrogantly while the others smirked. "It's not yours. This is a park and the Hokage owns it," said Naruto with a frown on his face. The older boy didn't seem to like that and leaned menacingly towards Naruto who narrowed his eyes a little. "It seems the idiot doesn't know his place. Boys like you without parents or family don't belong in this place," the boy said harshly. Naruto looked away, hurt by the comment. Yuruchi lifted her head and tensed up, sweeping her tail in a wide swath, letting out a low yowl. "Hey, it seems like he has my goggles too," another of the boys said mockingly, taking Naruto's goggles from him. Yuruchi was about to jump at the boy, but unfortunately she didn't see the other boy who had thrown a small rock at her. "You hurt her? Yuruchi-chan." Naruto screamed with tears in his eyes. The others merely laughed at that. "Yuruchi-chan," mimicked one of them mockingly. "Pathetic. And you said you want to be a ninja." Angry, Naruto stood up and threw a punch at the laughing boy, but the others were bigger and faster than him. One of the boys punched him in the eye and the other kicked Naruto in the stomach. "Hey, watch it, idiot," yelled one of them, landing another punch. "I am going to kick you and then I am going to kick that cat of yours, sir. Maybe I'll take it with me. I am sure my sister would like it. The animal needs a decent home and good people. Not monsters like you." Naruto was on the ground, silent tears rolling down his face. His eyes hurt a little as did his stomach and his lip. He saw Yuruchi on the ground and more tears appeared in his eyes. That was the first time he heard them, the voices in his head. "Pathetic, move, quickly." He didn't know who it was or where it had come from, but he heard 2 different voices of that he was certain. Unfortunately, he didn't pay attention to the words and he felt a kick on his back. "Useless, told you. Move now." And he did it and this time there was no pain and the kick landed on the ground where he had been seconds before. He looked up to see the same boys trying to kick him again. "You're weak and pathetic. Human, is this how you fight? How you try to protect those you care about? Shut up." Naruto stand up now. And Naruto did, but he was confused. Who was talking to him? Why was it talking to him? Distracted, he didn't notice the punch until it landed on his right cheek. "Stupid. I don't care if you're a kid, fight." "Shut up, you're making him nervous." "Weak, useless, pathetic, humans and Shinigami are all the same." "Shut up." Naruto screamed at the voice. The blonde grabbed his head that was starting to hurt not only because of the punches, but of the screams that seemed to be coming from inside his head. "Shut up. Shut up." The other boy stood wide-eyed at the blonde's scream, a little afraid that maybe what their parents had told them about the blonde was true. Itachi and Yuruchi narrowed their eyes at the same time. Hey. Whoa, are you telling to shut up? Careful, he's going to launch another punch." Naruto opened his eyes in time to evade the punch. He was about to fight back when a bigger figure appeared and grabbed his wrist with such force, Naruto whimpered in pain. "You filthy scum. What were you gonna do to my son?" the man shouted in outrage. "I should kill you now." The man stopped short at the chilly feel of a blade on his neck. He turned around to see red eyes glaring at him. "You were about to break the law and to harm an innocent boy who has been harassed by your son. This thing is not innocent." The man stuttered with more bravery than he felt. Naruto winced in pain once again at the hand clenching his. Let him go before I feel the need to hurt you, Itachi whispered with a cold voice that sent shivers down everyone's spines. The man let go of Naruto, and the blonde fell to the ground. Naruto immediately stood up and ran to the boy who had his goggles and grabbed them back. The red-eyed man lifted one eyebrow. Now, I suggest you leave. Consider this your first and last warning. Next time I am not going to be so merciful. The man left with his son and the other kids. Naruto ran towards Uruchi and lifted her in his arms, hugging her tearfully. Itachi saw the scene guiltily. He had not meant to be so late and let everything go out of hand, but what he had just witnessed told him something happened to Naruto. His scream, the way he grabbed his head, the strange pressure that was growing around them. "I'm sorry Uruchi-chan, I'm so sorry." The boy said, sobbing a little, "I should protect you." The cat pressed her face against Naruto's body, rubbing her head a little. Itachi neared Naruto and extended a hand towards him. "I am sorry, Uzumaki-san. Please let me take you to Yugao-san's apartment and treat your injuries." Naruto nodded and followed the young Uchiha. Neither of them noticed the shadow that was watching them from afar. "Want to talk about it?" asked a cat, rubbing her face against Naruto's chest. The boy merely shrugged and looked everywhere but at the cat that sat on his legs. "Naruto, I already told you that it was fine. I am not angry with you, and I don't blame you for what happened a few days back. I let them hurt you," he said as if that settled the topic. "Naruto, you are only 5 years old," Uruchi said. Naruto pouted at that because his birthday had just passed. He thought he was big enough now to fight. After all, he did go to the ninja academy and was learning how to be a ninja, even if some of his teachers weren't nice to him. "I am a ninja," he exclaimed. "You are training to be a ninja," Uruchi reminded him. "I know." Naruto sighed. "I just wish I was strong and I could make them look at me with respect." They fell silent for a moment and just enjoyed their surroundings. They had escaped from Itachi's watchful eye and were now in a clearing near Konoha's store. It was past noon, and Naruto decided that he didn't want to be in the village, not really liking the hateful glares thrown his way. That was how they ended up there, without Itachi and free to talk with each other. "Nah, Uruchi-chan, you said you were gonna train me," the boy mumbled shyly, which only made Uruchi remember something she had meant to ask Naruto. "Yes, and I would do it." Naruto smiled brightly at her, but before he could say anything Uruchi continued, "But I want you to answer me something." "What is it?" "To whom were you talking back at the park while you were fighting those kids?" Naruto looked confused for a moment, not really knowing what Uruchi was asking about until, "I think she is talking about me." Then Naruto's eyes opened wide with realization and he looked down at Uruchi, who was scrutinizing him critically. "I don't know, it was a voice inside my head," he said softly, then inquired, "Am I crazy? Is that why they called me monster and scum and all those mean things?" Uruchi's gaze softened and she rubbed her head against Naruto's chest once again. "No, you are not a monster or any other nasty names they call you, Naruto. If anything, you are a hero." "A hero?" "Yes, but before I tell you that story, has that voice talked to you since then?" "Yes, it just spoke." "He said you are talking about him." Naruto scrunched up his nose, glancing at Uruchi. "You mean it just talked to you?" "Yep, but that day it wasn't the only one that talked," Naruto said with a frown, and Uruchi lifted an interested eyebrow. "There was another voice." "Yes, but I didn't like it. It was really nasty and it made my head hurt." Naruto pursed his lips, glancing up, then as an afterthought Naruto looked down at Uruchi. "Do you know that voice?" "Well, partly." "What do you mean?" "Do you remember what I told you about Shinigami and Zanpakuto?" "Yes." Another silence. This time neither of them talked for a good 5 minutes. Naruto was getting restless and poked Uruchi in the side. "Nah, are you going to tell me?" he said, pouting a little. "Yes, but not now. Your watchdog is here. Just remember this, that voice, not the nasty one but the other, you can trust it, do not ever doubt of it." Naruto nodded, not really understanding, but trusting Uruchi. Then a few moments later Itachi appeared. The black-haired boy had a panicked look on him. When his eyes locked with Naruto's, the blonde could see the anger there, but also the concern. "Uzumaki-san, you scared me." The Uchiha kneeled in front of Naruto. The boy tensed up a little, then something happened that Naruto had never seen the Uchiha do before. Itachi leaned over and gave him a short hug and soft smile. "I am glad you're okay, but please, Uzumaki-san, don't do that ever again," he said. "At least not when I am watching over you." "Sorry Itachi, it's just that Uruchi can hunt butterflies in here." "I see. Well, it is getting late, we'd better go back to the village," said Itachi, turning around and showing his back to Naruto. "Go on, Uzumaki-san, climb on me. I'll carry you to the village." Yay. The 2 weeks passed quickly and without any more incidents. This time he got to watch over Naruto, though taught Itachi a thing or two about the blonde. It changed the way he viewed Naruto, not only because of what he had inside of him, but because of who he was. Itachi knew why the sudden interest from his father and the Uchiha clan on the boy, what exactly they wanted to accomplish with this mission, yet Itachi could not bring himself to betray the trust Naruto had placed on him. Just as he did with Sasuke, Itachi would protect Naruto from his father and the Uchiha clan. Yugaku was not happy about the results of such a mission. While the blonde had potential, he was still useless to the plans he and the rest of the clan were drafting for Konoha. Itachi saw as his father rambled about Sasuke and Naruto and the sacrifices that must be done for the greater food. By the end of those 2 weeks, Itachi found himself in front of the Hokage and the 3 elders. Homura, Kaharu and Danzo. After a brief talk with them, he found himself accepting the mission for the greater good of the village, Naruto and Sasuke. After all, how bad could it be to spy on his own clan? Naruto for his part had started what Orochi called control of his Reiatsu. Whatever that Reiatsu thing was, Naruto could feel it but didn't have any idea what it was, how it worked or why only him had it. At first he thought it would be a form of ninja training with chakra and all, but it seemed that the woman had another thing in mind. However, when that training started, Naruto was glad of the explanations Orochi made and the answers he had obtained. He had been wondering for a long time about all these things but didn't dare to ask. For example, he learned about the plusher human souls were those people he usually saw with chains attached to their chest. He also knew why he heard growls or howls late at night and sometimes during the day. She called them hollows and told Naruto that they were evil. Okay, she said a lot more about them, but to Naruto, in the end, it just meant that they were evil. You are getting better with this, Naru-chan. Thanks. Naruto replied, smiling brightly at Orochi. Yuga-chan said that as well, but she was talking about me throwing kunai to the target. That's good to hear. Orochi smiled tenderly at Naruto. She glanced out of the window before returning her attention to the blonde. With a sad smile on her face, she knelt down, placing a hand on the boy's shoulder. I have to go for a little while. Naruto's happy expression changed to one of sadness. Do you have to? Yes. There is an important matter that needs my immediate attention. Naruto hesitated a moment or two before saying. Can you take me with you? I promise I would be good. Orochi winced a little. She knew Naruto would be good and she would love to take the boy away from that place and never come back, but this was not the time. Sorry Naruto, not this time, she said, hugging the boy. I would be back though, and I expect you to be stronger by then. Do not forget to practice this. I will, Orochi-chan. Orochi leaned over and kissed Naruto's forehead before transforming herself back into her cat form. Take care Naruto. Do not forget that I will be back. I know. Bye Orochi-chan, when you're back I will be stronger and have mastered this. I know you will, she said fondly, and with that Orochi left. Unfortunately, things weren't that easy for him in the next week. While attempts against his life had stopped long ago, that didn't stop people from trying to harm him in other ways that usually led him to the hospital. That night had been one of those moments in which Naruto barely escaped from his pursuers. Naruto was hiding behind some trash cans outside a pub where the sounds of party had died long ago. In his left hand he had the necklace that had always been his and with the other he was trying to wipe away the tears. He had promised himself he would never cry again. He had entered the ninja academy for that. He had promised Orochi-chan he would become stronger and not let other people make him cry or call him mean names. Another tear escaped his closed eyes and a little sob followed it. I wish Orochi-chan was here. The presence, followed by the sound of soft footsteps, called Naruto's attention. The blonde lifted his head and tried to hide himself while at the same time observing the newcomer. It was a girl. To Naruto, the girl was really beautiful, even more than Sakura from the academy. She had her hair pulled up with a bang on the left side of her face, she had glasses and was wearing black clothes resembling those he had seen in some pictures and really important people clothing. She stood there as if looking for something, and Naruto couldn't help but feel curiously drawn to her. The girl moved in the direction opposite of where Naruto was, never noticing the small paper that fell from her sleeve. It didn't matter how curious or how drawn he was to her, Naruto had learned a long time ago that appearances could be deceiving and that usually ended up with him on the hospital or in a corner on his apartment, injured and bleeding. So he moved slowly and without making any sound, he picked up the piece of paper. He followed the young woman for some time. Seems like you have a young stalker, Nana-chan. The woman and the boy jumped at the same time. Both were startled and shocked at the newcomer's words. Naruto turned around to see an older man with a playful smile on his face and his eyes fixed on Naruto. He was wearing a pink haori and a straw hat. Naruto had to blink several times to convince himself that in front of him was an old man with a pink article on him. "Haichu!" exclaimed Nana with a reproachful look and was about to lecture him for scaring her like that when his words sank in and she noticed the boy and his Taichu looking at one another. Naruto felt a little uneasy. The man hadn't taken his eyes off him and while the man seemed to be merely surprised and inquisitive, Naruto didn't know if that was a good or bad thing. After all, it was still October and it was around that month when the most horrible and unexpected things happened to him. "How you drop this," said Naruto shyly, turning towards the woman who was gaping at him, shocked. "You can see me? You can see us?" Naruto frowned, a little confused at that weird question. Of course, he could see them, why wouldn't he? Of course, I can see you. Exclaimed Naruto, crossing his arms and pouting. I was trying to help, sorry if I bothered you. Oh, you have to forgive Nanao-chan, it isn't every day a young man as yourself help a damsel in distress like her, replied the weird-looking man, which in turn earned him a smack on the head with a fan from said damsel. Naruto chuckled at that, and the woman was a little flustered at what she had just done, while the man was whining about how cruel his Nanao-chan was. Then he was back to that serious look. Oh, if it is not much trouble, could you let me see that necklace you have there? Naruto narrowed his eyes and grabbed his necklace with one hand. If there was something that could make him doubt people's intention, was that necklace. In the past he had trusted some adults who later on wanted to rob him of his most precious possession. Sorry sir, but I was told by Anbu-chan that I wasn't allowed to talk with strangers, Naruto said, eyeing the man in front of him. How rude of me. The man smiled slightly. My name is Kairaku Shunsui, and this lovely woman over here is Nanao-chan. Ice Nanao, rectified the woman with a hard look towards her Taichu, who merely smiled. Naruto hesitated for a moment, looking from the man to the woman before answering. I am Uzumaki Naruto. But even if I know your name, I won't let you look at my necklace. This made Nanao giggle. The little boy wasn't a fool at all, and the expression on her Taichu's face was priceless. Naruto looked curiously at Nanao before letting a small smile appear on his face. He added, but Nanao-chan can see it. Now that made the young woman laugh and her Taichu brood a little. Can you at least tell me who gave it to you? Asked a defeated Kairaku. Naruto seems to think about it before nodding his head. He was starting to like these people. Hokage said this was a gift from my father. Your father? Who was it? I don't know, we am an orphan? Orphan? Offered Nanao with an odd hint of sadness. Naruto nodded, but it was a smile that appeared on his face rather than a sad expression. Then, how do you know it was your father's? Kairaku pressed on. Hokage said it was and that I should treasure it, answered the little boy. Kairaku and Nanao looked at each other for a moment before Kairaku knelt in front of Naruto, who tensed up, fearing the worst. But the only thing the man did was to put a gentle hand on the blonde's head. Your father gave you a very important gift. You should treasure it with your life. Naruto looked at him in great surprise. It was the first time someone touched him like that and said those things to him. He had seen so many fathers with their sons, and that same gesture repeatedly played out. Naruto nodded and gave the man a small grin before opening his hand, but to his surprise the man closed Naruto's hand again around the pendant. No, you were right, Naruto. I am a stranger. Maybe after we get to know each other better you can let me see it. Thank you, mumbled Naruto. He felt his eyes grow hot and had a lump in his throat. Naruto-kun. The three of them lifted their heads to see a woman with a mask on her face running towards them. Kairaku stood up and beside him Nanao got into combat position. The man smiled at Naruto. You should go over to that lovely woman who's calling you, he urged. Naruto nodded and dedicated the two figures a real smile. Aji-san, Nanao-chan. And with that Naruto went to the Anbu. Naruto. Where have you been? You have 3 Anbu squadrons looking for you, said the woman who couldn't help but hug the boy. I'm fine, Anbu-chan. Do not do that ever again. When I arrived at your apartment and saw that Mez didn't do that, you know next time you should go to the Hokage Tower or my place. Naruto nodded and grabbed the Anbu's hand before he turned around and waved enthusiastically behind him. The Anbu turned around but saw nothing. What are you doing, Naruto? Saying goodbye. To whom? Naruto looked at the place where Nanao and Kairaku were waving back at him and then at the Anbu, who really seemed to not know to whom he was saying bye. That was when Naruto understood that the 2 people he had met were souls. So, it didn't surprise Naruto at all that the Anbu couldn't see them. After all, he knew that the Anbu couldn't hear the screams at night or see people with chains on their chest like he could. So, Naruto shrugged before lifting his arms and putting on his special puppy eyes. Can you carry me, please? He pleaded pathetically. The woman sighed but did it anyway. She was thinking while carrying the blonde boy, wondering to whom he was waving and if she should be worried about it. She never noticed the shadow up in the roofs and that the figure was wondering the same thing as her. To whom were you talking to, Naruto? Thought the figure, worried about the implications of talking to no one in particular, or at least, to someone that no one could see. Back to where Kairaku and Nanao stood, the woman turned to face her Taichu, whose smile had been replaced by a contemplative look. Taichu? What happened back there? Nanao-chan, I have to go back to Soul Society. There is something I need to do, the captain of the 8th Division said seriously, which caught Nanao by surprise. Can you do me a favor? Of course, Taichu. Kairaku lowered the brim of his hat. Look up everything you can about Uzumaki Naruto. Nanao's eyes widened with surprise at that request. She was about to ask why when her Taichu stopped her. I would explain everything to you once I am back from Soul Society. Please do as I ask you. Don't worry, Taichu, I'll do it. The Hokage sighed and lifted his glance from the paperwork he had in front of him. Is something the matter, Kakashi? A new figure appeared from behind the old man. He was dressed in the customary Anbu uniform, but his mask was on his left hand. "Forgive my intrusion, Hokage-sama," but Kakashi trailed off, wondering if it would be right to share his worries with the man. After all, the shinobi knew about the affection the man had for little Naruto. "There is something that has been bothering me from quite some time." "I see, and what could that be?" Sarutobi lifted his eyebrows, really interested in what could worry the lackadaisical Kakashi. "Yesterday when we were looking for Naruto, well, I found him even before Yuga-san, and he was talking to himself." That statement surprised Sarutobi even more. That Kakashi would be worried because little Naruto was talking to himself was a little ridiculous. He was a kid after all, and moreover a kid without friends or family to talk with. To have an imaginary friend or a cat to talk with, while it may be not that healthy, was normal to a certain extent. That was why he was really grateful to Yugao, because so far she was the only human being apart from the people at the ramen stand who would talk to Naruto. "Okay, Kakashi, you will have to forgive me if I found your concern a little unnecessary. But Hokage-sama, aren't you a little worried that he is communicating with it?" asked Kakashi. "Now I get it," said Sarutobi, understanding Kakashi's concern. "The Kyuubi no Kitsune." Truth be told, Sarutobi would be worried if Jiraiya hadn't told him how the seal Minato used worked. Then, there is nothing to worry about. "But don't you trust in your sensei to do the right thing with the seal, Kakashi?" Kakashi frowned uncomfortable. He didn't like when people brought up his sensei into the conversation. It wasn't like he didn't trust his sensei. On the contrary, he believed that the man did an excellent work. But Kakashi didn't trust the fox or his sensei's son for that matter. Naruto was, after all, a boy and a lonely one at that. He was hated and rejected, and usually those kinds of feelings made people grow up in the wrong way. That was why he was so worried when he heard Naruto talk to himself. "I do trust Minato-sensei, Hokage-sama. However, you weren't there when Naruto started talking, or the day he suddenly screamed to shut up at someone that wasn't there." "Very well, what did he said?" "I couldn't hear the entire conversation, but I did hear when he said that he wasn't allowed to talk with strangers. He mentioned the fact that he was an orphan and that you told him about his father's gift." Sarutobi couldn't help the smile that appeared when Kakashi mentioned the strangers part, but his face changed into one of seriousness when Kakashi ended his story. "I couldn't hear anything else since I sensed that Yuga was near." "I see." Sarutobi went silent for a few seconds, contemplating the possibilities. At first sight it would seem like Naruto was talking with some imaginary friend, nothing to worry about, but that necklace. Sarutobi sighed. Not even Jiraiya knew where Minato had found that necklace and why he decided to give it to Naruto. He remembered, however, Jiraiya's frown when he tried to take it from baby Naruto. "It seems to me that this could be just something temporary. Like the cat," snorted Kakashi with a hint of annoyance in his voice. The Hokage lifted a single eyebrow at the man who apologized promptly. "Maybe, after you return from this mission, you would like to watch young Naruto to see if this behavior continues. Don't you agree?" Kakashi nodded before putting his mask on and disappearing. The Hokage lifted his gaze towards the Hokage monument and let his gaze rest on the face of the Yondaime Hokage. "It seems like your son inherited your habit to talk to no one in particular, at least that is what I hope for." Haku entered the 13th division where his best friend was resting once again. Inside his room were the two loyal third seats, Kiin Katetsu and Centrum Katsubaki, and the young sister of the Taichu of the 6th division. After a silent glance with a very polite smile, the three Shinigami took the hint and stood up, apologizing with some excuse before leaving both Taichu and old friends alone. Yuki Takeshi was really surprised by this. He could count on one hand the times that Kairaku had done exactly the same thing, and usually it only brought problems to both of them. Kairaku pulled out a bottle of sake before looking straight ahead with a pensive look that in reality didn't suit him at all. "Is it something the matter, Kairaku?" asked Yukite curiously. Kairaku looked at his friend with a small smile before saying, "Do you remember Hikifune Kiryu-chan?" Yukite sat straight, his calm posture now a little tense at that question. He looked up to see Kairaku right in the eye before nodding his head. "Of course, I remember her, she was the former captain of the 12th division, she was transferred to the 0 division." "Yes, do you remember her maiden name?" Now this situation was getting stranger by the minute and Yukite only wanted Kairaku to get straight to the point. Knowing his friend, it was better if he just humored him for a little while. "Kazama, her maiden name was Kazama," Yukite said, then as an afterthought, "That's the clan in charge of the Kidu Corps, right? And if I am not wrong they are the best with seals, which gained them the position of the sealers in Soul Society." Kairaku smiled, nodding at his friend before taking a sip from his sake. Once again the Taichu of the 8th division became silent and contemplative. He was thinking how to express his concern to his best friend, because whatever he said right now he knew would end up in Yamaji's hands sooner or later, so he better be right about it. Kairaku hesitated for a moment before meeting Yukite's gaze. "What would you say if I told you that I found Kazama Minato, or at least his son?" "Yeah, you what?" blurted Yukite, shocked. It appears that I have found the whereabouts of Minato-kun. I found this kid with the same pendant Kiryu-chan gave to little Minato when he was named head of the clan," said Kairaku. "Not only that, but you should also see him. If it wasn't for the whiskers marks, he would be the exact copy of Minato-kun." Are you certain?" "Yes, but I will probably have proof of that after Nanao-chan's investigation." "Are you planning to tell him?" "You mean Arashi-san?" Yuki-take nodded. "No, I would probably talk with Yamajai first." "You think it is wise?" asked Yuki-take after a while. "I mean, after the way he left and all." I don't know, but there has been a lot of coincidences lately, and the appearance of a possible heir of Minato-kun is just the tip of the iceberg." Prelude, and the tip of the iceberg it was. Just as promised, as soon as Nanao gave him enough information about Uzumaki Naruto, Kairaku Shunsui went to his sensei, captain of the 1st Divisions and commander of the squads guarding Soul Society. Shijikuni Yamamoto Genryusai. Kairaku knew his former sensei would not take the subject lightly. When he presented the evidence, Yamamoto Satechu didn't even hesitate as to what should be their next step. The head of the Kazama clan should be informed of the situation, but it would be prudent if no one apart from them knew about Naruto's existence. With this in mind, on a very sunny afternoon almost 2 months after his first encounter with the kid, Kairaku and Yamamoto found themselves sitting right before Kazama Arashi. They were in a small room in the 1st Division building with a beautiful sight to the back garden in the 1st Squad barracks. "So, I take it that this is not a social meeting, right?" the young man asked, looking at the two captains after some light talk about nothing of importance. He smiled softly at them before taking a sip from his cup. His gaze had changed from soft and carefree to hard and wary when he saw the exchange of glances between Kairaku and Yamamoto. "Unfortunately, it is not. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't enjoy a cup of tea and some light conversation," Kairaku replied, offering a half smile. The young Kazama nodded in agreement. "I couldn't agree more," Arashi returned the smile, glancing back at the garden. "I'm afraid our duties leave little to no time to just enjoy light conversation before going straight to the point. I can tell you it gets tiresome to some degree. And yet, I'm guessing you have reached the breaking point of your curiosity and patience." Arashi laughed lightly at these, his eyes twinkled smartly as they focused on Kairaku. "I guess I was not that subtle, was I?" "No need to be, Kazama Dono." This time it was Yamamoto Satechu the one entering the conversation. "We know you work on a tight schedule, and this meeting was to discuss with you something of great importance." Arashi cocked his head, those light brows furrowed in wonderment as the old captain fixed his stance. Kairaku leaned forward, placing a strange scroll and a file right on the table. "Something came up on my last visit to the shinobi world," Kairaku stated, placing a finger on the files. "And you require my presence for this?" Kazama was now highly intrigued, never before had he been called with so much secrecy to the barracks of Yamamoto. A refreshing breeze blew lightly around them. Kazama Arashi glanced at the files and the scroll before lifting his eyes to Kairaku. "Please Kazama Dono, have a look at that." Without further ado, Arashi leaned in, grabbing the file first. The young man read the first page, his hand was trembling as his grey eyes swept around the pages and the words in it. With each and every word his world was shaken to the point his Ryatsu leaked dangerously around the other two captains. The man clenched his jaw, grabbing some pictures before his eyes went to the scroll. "Is that?" Arashi asked, glancing at Kairaku. "The sketches for the seal." Kairaku confirmed. It had been so long since he last saw the work of his brother, Kazama Arashi could not help the nostalgia that invaded him the moment his eyes fell upon his brother's handwriting and his drawings. That, along with the pictures of the boy, became far too much for him. Whatever emotions he was experiencing were soon hidden behind an expressionless mask. "There is not a single doubt about these findings, Kairaku Taichu. None, I verify everything myself." Arashi let out a tired sigh and locked his eyes on the picture of a blond boy of no more than 6 years old in a swing with a sad look on his face. The boy looked so pathetic in there, as if he had been punished for something he didn't do, or maybe because someone had said something bad to him. So different from the memories he had of Minato. The moment Arashi lifted his eyes to glance at the two captains, his eyes were hard as steel. "This is as of now a clan business," he declared with a commanding tone. "I will inform Central 46 in due time. For now, can I count on you to keep silent until such a time?" "As you had said, Kazama Dono, this is a clan matter." "Well, I can't allow this information to go unknown for too long. I think I can give you some time," declared Yamamoto. Arashi gave a short nod. "Do not worry, Yamamoto Satechu, I will personally inform the Central 46, but before I do that I would like to ask for Kairaku Taichu and your help." "It would be my pleasure, Arashi-san." "Tell me what you need," Kairaku said. Arashi set out a picture and a piece of paper with a curious symbol on it. "This I know is part of the seal. I can see Minato's signature on it. But there isn't enough information about the other part of the seal. Can you search for it?" And also, if the boy allows you to take a picture of it, I would like to see the seal on his stomach." Kairaku looked at the seal and then at Arashi and finally at Yamamoto. The old man centered his eyes on the young Kazama before turning to face Kairaku. "From now on, you will take care of the excursions to the shinobi world. You will lead other squad's members as well as yours when needed, Kairaku Taichu." "Understood, Yamaji, Arashi-san." Kairaku bowed slightly to both the old man and Kazama. That meeting took place 6 years ago. Now, Kairaku was resting on the roof of his own division. He was waiting for the young Kazama to execute his plan to retrieve the boy from his human form and from the only place he had called home. Chapter 2. The Calm Before the Storm. The first mission. "And then I got the damn cat, and when we returned to that woman almost killed it, and I actually felt sorry for him," Naruto said, furrowing his brows lightly. Yoruichi was resting against a tree with Naruto's head resting on her lap. She had been listening to Naruto all afternoon as he narrated his adventures since becoming a genin. The woman had been amused though quite thoughtful, as she realized Naruto was not only growing up physically, but also in power and skill. Soon she knew, many others would notice him and then. The blonde boy kept telling different stories, while Yoruichi watched him with affection. He certainly had grown up from the little boy that ran around all day playing alone and trying to survive a world that despised his existence. She had been a little worried when Naruto had told her about Kairaku, but, like Urahara had said, it was inevitable, and in a way the captain of the 8th squad was another link to Naruto's origins and another person that showed him some kind of affection. Life hadn't been easy for the blonde, and it angered Yoruichi that so many things had been kept from him, things that could change the way he grew up or the way he behaved sometimes. "Nah, Yoruichi-chan, should we try it again?" said Naruto, lifting the wooden sword on his right hand. "I don't think so, I think I have kicked your ass enough for a day." At that Naruto pouted and sat up straight, glaring at the woman. "You didn't kick my ass, I just let you," he said lamely. Yoruichi snorted at that statement. "Yeah, you're a real gentleman," she said with sarcasm. "You said that tomorrow you have your first real mission." "Yes, it's our first C-rank mission, and those are really important. At least we will stop doing those horrendous chores," said Naruto. "Well, if I wear you out today you're not going to have enough strength to go on that mission tomorrow. You're just afraid of me." Yoruichi lifted an eyebrow at him, and Naruto gulped, scratching the back of his head sheepishly. "Okay, I think you're right. Besides, I am hungry and it is getting late," said Naruto quickly. "I thought so." Naruto stood up and stretched himself. Yoruichi watched him for a moment before clearing her throat to call Naruto's attention. The blonde boy looked at her curiously, and Yoruichi stood up in front of him, putting a hand on his shoulder. The change in attitude and the seriousness in Yoruichi's face told Naruto that the woman wanted to talk to him about something important. "I am really proud of you, Naruto." The boy stiffened at those words, and he evaded Yoruichi's eyes. "You have grown up so well and you're getting stronger and stronger, it is incredible that you already fought your first hollow." "Yeah, but I got my ass kicked, and if it hadn't been for Kairaku-ji I would be well." "Still, you fought with a hollow without a Zanpakuto. That was stupid, but it shows what you are capable of. On top of that you become a genin and you're starting your career as a shinobi. Your own Zanpakuto is starting to make a direct contact with you." Yoruichi trailed off and pulled out a silver and blue scroll from her clothes. Naruto looked at it inquisitively and Yoruichi smirked slightly. "I have 2 things for you." "2 things for me?" "Yes, I decide that you are old enough and skilled enough to have this," she said, passing Naruto the scroll. The blonde took the item, eyes wide. "Now, you wouldn't have a problem calling out for your Zanpakuto and using this until that time comes. According to the salesman, this is made of a special metal that works really well with chakra." "You mean this is a you bought me a sword?" said Naruto with his eyes fixated in the scroll. "Yes, of course I have. You are now a shinobi and as one you need a proper weapon, more than shuriken and kunai," Yoruichi commented with a half smile. Thank you. Naruto hugged the purple-haired woman who merely smiled at the boy's antics. "Okay, that is my first gift for you. My second one is." Naruto looked up at her with a big grin and an expectant face. "The second one is the answer to the question you asked me a long time ago." There was a moment of silence in which Naruto stood there a little shocked. To say that he wasn't imploding with curiosity and anxiety would be an understatement. He trusted Yoruichi with his life. She had been there for him when no one else had cared, and he had always wondered why and how the woman had found him. At the time he asked the question she told him that he was still young and immature. But right now, the woman was willing to respond to his query. It made Naruto face the fact that he was really growing up and that people around him were noticing. "You mean, you are going to tell me how you found me and why you stayed with me?" "Yes and no." At this Naruto stared blankly at her. Yoruichi merely moved her hand to the necklace that hung from Naruto's neck and in that moment her gaze was as distant as her voice. "I still remember the day your father received this." Naruto gasped at that revelation. He turned his blue eyes to Yoruichi. "You resemble him a lot, Naruto." "How you met my father?" asked the boy with a trembling voice. "Yes." There was memory behind Yuruchi's gaze. She retrieved her hand, locking her eyes with those of Naruto. I found you on the very same day he had to go, and it was not difficult, for your inner strength was quite evident even then. Silence fell between them, Naruto overwhelmed by a tingling on his abdomen and chest. Yuruchi glanced at the sky, then back the young man in front of her. He would be proud of you, Naruto. Yuruchi whispered, placing a hand on Naruto's shoulder. And I stayed with you because I love you. You're gonna make cry, Yuruchi-chan. Naruto mumbled, looking away. Yuruchi chuckled, pushing Naruto playfully, then we better go. It is getting late and I bet you're really hungry and haven't packed a thing yet. I love you too, Yuruchi-chan. Naruto said after a moment. Yuruchi nodded, winking at him. I know. They started making their way down the hill towards the village. Naruto mused over what Yuruchi had revealed to him. It wasn't much, but at least it was something else than the vague insinuations he had all through his childhood. You're thinking too much, Naruto. I'm wondering, will you tell me more? Naruto finally asked, glancing at the woman standing before him. About him. About my family. I will, in due time. After you've finished your mission, I am going to tell you everything you want to know about your father, your Shinigami powers and your origins. Will you teach me more spells? Naruto smiled eagerly. Yuruchi laughed, shaking her head. Have you learned to control the ones I taught you? I have. Naruto puffed out his chest. You should see me in action. We will see, then. Yuruchi looked over at Naruto with soft and happy eyes. He smiled slightly and went to follow the woman. He treasured the moments he got to spend with her, the moments in which he would teach him how to be a ninja, a Shinigami, a child. Naruto owed so many things to Yuruchi. He started talking more about his recent mission, while Yuruchi transformed into a cat. With her in his arms, Naruto made a silent promise. To never fail, to make her and his father proud. Always. It was a sunny morning, but the birds couldn't be heard over the screams of enthusiasm coming from the blonde boy who was walking beside his teammates, his Jounin sensei and their client. Yuruchi was sitting on a branch of a random tree. The cat didn't have to turn around to know that she wasn't alone anymore. Came to say goodbye to him as well, Yuruchi-san. The voice had come from behind a cat mask, and the one talking had been a woman with purple hair and anbu gear. You sound surprised, Yugao-san. The woman didn't show any surprise or any other reaction at the fact that the cat was talking. I didn't know you were in the village, said the woman before sitting down beside the cat. I came to say goodbye and good luck, but it seems I was a little late. He knows that you are very busy, he didn't expect you to show up. Those words made Yugao flinch. She didn't want Naruto to think she was too busy or that she didn't have enough time for him, even if that was true. The cat gave Yugao a sidelong glance but said nothing more. It had been 3 years since the woman discovered that Yuruchi wasn't a normal cat, and it had taken almost a week to convince her that Yuruchi didn't mean any harm to Naruto or the village. And even though they had come to an agreement, it didn't mean that Yugao trusted her, and Yuruchi was well aware of that. That was why the Anbu woman liked to know whenever Yuruchi was in town. So, are you going to stay here and wait for him? Yugao asked bluntly. No, I will be back when he returns. There was a moment of silence. Yugao was about to talk but was cut off by Yuruchi. He has grown up a lot. When he comes back I would answer the questions he has and that your village is incapable of answering. What do you mean? Yugao's voice was low and dangerous and Yuruchi's eyes shone with amusement. Do not worry, I don't mean any harm with my words, and to be faithful to our agreement I will answer your questions as well. You mean you're going to tell me who you are and what are your intentions? Yugao could not hide the surprise behind her voice. So far I have let you alone because of Naruto but your village and of course Naruto's security comes first, interrupted Yuruchi, I know that. Like I said, do not worry. When he is back I would tell you everything you need to know and then you can decide what to do. Until then. Yuruchi jumped and disappeared in the forest undergrowth, not giving Yugao time to react. The Anbu Kunoichi sat there and prayed to whoever was listening that the cat wasn't an enemy because she didn't want Naruto to hate her for what she would be obliged to do to Yuruchi if the cat had bad intentions. He couldn't understand why some people loved sunrises and dawn so much. While he was a morning person, he still prefers dusk, that moment in which light turned into darkness and everything seemed less clear. Some people, especially those who didn't know him, would say that it had to do with that bad vibe they got from him. But it was really far from it. He didn't consider himself evil or anything like that, it was just that evenings were more agreeable. But of course, if all you wanted to do is to lure certain people into your wonderful trap, this was the perfect setting for that. Are you enjoying the view, Hinamori-san? The man asked with his constant mocking smile, and his eyes narrowed to slits. The young woman beside him smiled widely at that question and nodded her head. Yes, this is certainly beautiful, Ichimaru Taichu. This is the spot where you and Aizen-san arrived at the first time you were allowed here, isn't it? Asked the man, noticing the small blush on the girl's face. I thought so, he was the one who suggested the spot. Really? Hinamori asked enthusiastically. Yes, he did. I thought it had been for my benefit, but now I know I was wrong, the man said, amusement evident in his voice. Before Hinamori could reply, a young blonde man appeared from behind her. He had a Fukatechu badge with the symbol of the 3rd Division. Hinamori was wearing a similar badge, but hers was that of the 5th Division's. Is it everything alright, Izuru? Yes sir. The teams are all ready and we've successfully located the spots we were ordered to watch. Excellent job as always, Izuru. The blonde man lowered his gaze, embarrassed at the compliment. Jin turned his gaze to the faraway beach and decided that it was time for him to leave. Since everything seems to be alright, Izuru, Hinamori-san, you will each take a group and go to the designated points. You know the rules, do your job quickly, cleanly and carefully. Hinamori and Kira looked at each other before returning their eyes to the captain of the 3rd Division. Ichimari Jin granted them a simple smile before continuing, I wouldn't want my Fukatechu to get hurt, and I don't think Aizen Taichu would like it if Hinamori-san ended up hurt either. The pink flush colored Hinamori's cheeks, but Kira merely eyed his Taichu. But Taichu, that means that you're not coming with us. No, there seems to be a situation that requires the presence of a captain-level Shinigami, and since Kairaku Taichu isn't here the job falls to me. Then as your Fukatechu, shouldn't I go with you? Replied Kira in a soft voice, I am pretty sure Hinamori Fukatechu can take care of 2 teams. Kira looked over at Hinamori who nodded her head decisively. Jin merely leaned his head to the right before saying in mocking tones, your concern is really touching Izuru, but I think I can take care of this mission on my own. And no, sir. I never meant that you apologize, Kira with a light blush on his face. Now, so serious Izuru. I was merely joking, Jin said waving his hand and directing his always smiling face to his Fukatechu. Do not worry about me. Now, it is getting late, you and Hinamori-san should leave now. We will see each other again in 5 days, at this exact point. Yes, sir, both Fukatechu replied at the same time. Jin turned around and started walking away. A few meters ahead he lifted his right hand in farewell, and his voice reached both Shinigami before the captain disappeared at the speed of Shunpo. Good luck, Izuru, Hinamori. In no time Ichimari Jin was on the beach and the mountains were left behind him without a second thought or a single backward glance. He let the sound of the waves and the wind fill the silence, and with a more genuine expression on his face, he started making his way to the source of the familiar presence. It had been 5 years since he had been in that world, but he wasn't a captain for nothing. Besides, it was a presence that once you felt it, you could never forget. That was the whole point of joining forces with Aizen. Things that were ignored from many Shinigami weren't ignored by him, or Tausen. Jin started humming some melody he had heard once a long time ago. He couldn't deny that it was very fortunate to have 2 well-trained Fukatechu that wouldn't defy him or question him about anything. That was another reason as to why Ranjiku wasn't with him in the same squad. It would be very difficult to perform his alternative role with her beside him. Izuru, on the other hand, was easy to manipulate, just like Hinamori. While the 2 of them were in that world doing their job, Ichimari Jin shouldn't worry about his job. Let's hope this is more interesting than the last time I was here, he said to himself, not expecting that the path he was taking would lead him to some interesting discoveries. So far the mission to Wave Country had been boring. It wasn't as if Naruto didn't appreciate the change of scenery, with the sea and the forest and all the beautiful things that you could see only outside the village. It was that he thought he would engage himself in a life-threatening situation, which would lead to him saving the day and Sakura-chan looking at him with hearts in her eyes and declaring her undying love to him, and Sasuke admitting that Naruto was far stronger and cooler than him. And maybe Kakashi-sensei would stop giving him those weird looks and started noticing him. Naruto's wishful thinking was cut off when he ran into Sakura. The girl turned around with a furious look on her face. Watch it, Naruto. Those words were followed by a painful smack on the head. Sorry, Sakura-chan, I wasn't looking. He apologized weakly. The girl merely rolled her eyes and continued walking beside Sasuke, trying to get the boy to talk to her. Naruto sighed miserably. He soon resumed his stroll until something around him felt different. Naruto stopped death on his tracks. He took a deep breath, expanding his senses the way Kairaku and Yuruchi had been teaching him so far. It still surprised him how well he could sense others' Ryatsu than their chakra. Yuruchi had told him that it was because there were few people that had actual Ryatsu, and the only people he knew never controlled or tried to hide their presence. That and hollows weren't that smart at concealing anyway. Kairaku had said to him that it was because he was becoming stronger and more adept in his Shinigami powers, and thus more able to control his power. Nanao was scowling at her Taichu while he said those words with a familiar orange book on his hand. Naruto had wondered when Kairaku and Kakashi-sensei became friends. And, while Naruto would love to just believe Kairaku right away, he was no fool, and he knew Yuruchi was right. Maybe Naruto was growing in power and skill, but he still had a long way to actually identify those Ryatsu wearers over the ones who only have chakra in their system. Is something wrong, Naruto? The question coming from his sensei startled the blonde genin. The group stopped and all of them were now looking at him. No, just I thought I heard something. Just in that moment a white rabbit decided to make his appearance from behind a bush, darting out and dashing for cover in another thicket across the road. Idiot. It was only a rabbit. Sakura exclaimed a little exasperated. Naruto merely scratched the back of his head with a sheepish smile. Sorry, it's just stupid, Naruto. You were just trying to show off. Sakura could not hide her annoyance, she crossed her arms sending Naruto a nasty glare. I wasn't trying to show off, I was. That presence again impinged on his sense. Naruto swiveled his head around and frowned. It was so weird and infuriating. However, Naruto didn't have time to ponder much because his sensei screamed at them to dodge whatever the hell was coming their way. Oh? Konoha's copy shinobi, Sharingan no Kakashi is here, a hidden voice drawled. Team 7 looked up at the newcomer. He stood above a tree branch, on his back was resting a big Zanbatsu with his head leaning to the side and looking at them with indifference. Part of his face was covered with bandages and on his head was the forehead protector with the symbol of the mist. There was a tense moment of silence followed by a soft breeze. Naruto was really surprised at the appearance of the newcomer. Beside him, Sasuke's hand was itching beside his kunai holder, but his mind and eyes were fixated on Kakashi. Sharingan. Sasuke thought, shooting Kakashi a quick glance. Meanwhile Sakura seemed a little scared. Naruto let himself smile a little. This was what he was looking for, some kind of action to put his abilities to the test. His hand however went inside his jacket and grabbed the gift that Yuruchi had given him before parting. Oh, May are you Mamachi's abuser? Kakashi asked politely, with his hands on his pockets. The question made Naruto and Sasuke look directly at their sensei, narrowing their eyes, while Sakura tried to rein in her temper. You are, aren't you? The missing Nin Kurigakur no Sato, the demon of the mist. It's such an honor that a shinobi of your caliber knows me so well, Zabuza replied with a hint of sarcasm in his voice. Naruto and Sasuke both got ready to launch an attack, but a gesture from their sensei stopped them. Why has a man like you appeared so suddenly? Kakashi tilted his head, his voice hardened as his eyes pinned the other shinobi to the spot. What do you want? The man let out a chuckle before turning around and facing Team 7. Why, you ask? Very well, I am not interested in fighting against you or those brats. Zabuza trailed off, letting the tension build up. Then he pointed to the bridge builder. I just want the old man over there. You hand him to me and I don't kill you or your brats. How is that? What? Who do you think you are? You actually think that we are going to do that? We are shinobi, not brats. Screamed Naruto. Sakura hissed at Naruto to be quiet. Zabuza, however, seemed a little amused at the blonde's reaction. Shinobi, The man laughed out loud this time. Naruto felt his rage rise and prepared to attack, but once again he was stopped by his sensei. Naruto, what an amusing boy, let me tell you something. When I was your age, these hands were already soaked in blood. Only then was I allowed to take the title of shinobi. Zabuza smirked at the shocked faces that the three genin made. When your hands get soaked in the blood of your opponent, then you may call yourself a shinobi. For now, you're just a brat aspiring to play with the big guys. But enough talk. If you're not going to hand over the old geezer, then I will take his life and yours by force. You lay one hand on him and I'll. Naruto. Our top priority is protecting Tazuna-san. Having cooled down the impulsive blonde, Kakashi barked out orders. The three of you make a band formation. I will fight him. Zabuza did not seem to find that intimidating, but a hint of dark delight grew in his face. Kakashi lifted his forehead protector, showing an old scar and a red eye with 3 Tomo. The infamous Sharingan. Kakashi prepared himself to fight Zabuza, while Team 7 moved to protect Azuna from the shinobi. This only amused Zabuza and a fog started forming around them. Kakashi, you are a little naive. Well, I wouldn't have any trouble handling you and your team alone, I didn't come in here unprepared. Kakashi's eyes opened wide and he turned too late. The fog was getting dense and Zabuza was attacking him, preventing the Jounin from going over to his team. No, your fight is with me, Kakashi. Let the brats face a real shinobi. Zabuza's eyes glinted with twisted humor. How else would they learn? Sasuke was the first one to react. He pulled out a kunai and stopped the metal claw headed directly at their client. However, the mist and the speed of the newcomer made it hard for Sasuke to fight back at his full potential. Behind him a trembling but determined Sakura kept close to Tazuna while Naruto was trying to survey his surrounds. Sasuke narrowed his eyes and grabbed his kunai tighter. Well, he couldn't see a thing, he could still hear, so he let himself catch whatever sound that might indicate his enemy's position and potential moves. The whisper of footsteps to his right was all Sasuke needed to whirl around in time to stop once again the metal claw, but it wasn't enough to stop the chain that trapped one of his legs. "Gotcha," said a man with a half mask. Sasuke's eyes opened in surprise, and his reaction was cut short when the shinobi crunched his fist into his face. Naruto and Sakura lifted their heads and turned to the sound of someone moaning in pain. Kakashi's attention drifted for a moment when he felt the chakra from Sasuke lower a little. I need to end this and end it now, thought the Jounin, trying to block another attack coming from one of Zabuza's clones. Sasuke-kun. Sakura screamed. The pink-haired girl hesitated for a moment, her body wanting to run towards the origin of the sound, but the rational and responsible part of her stopped her, telling her that her mission was the old man behind her and not Sasuke. Sakura bit her lip. Lost in her considerations, she never noticed the blur approaching her. Naruto was getting frustrated. His first mission and so far he felt useless. Even the team had moved out and tried to fight while he stood there doing nothing. Naruto sighed through his teeth and was about to launch himself into the mist when he felt it. A presence very different from the ones near him. Naruto stood up straight with a frown. It was the one he had felt before all that mess started. The presence was near them, but Naruto couldn't tell exactly where it was or if it was friendly or not. Just great. Mumbled Naruto. He turned to see how Sakura was doing when he noticed a shadow moving towards the clueless girl. Naruto didn't think twice, and with his kunai in hand, he went to intercept the attack the enemy shinobi had launched against the pink-haired girl. Maizu, a Chunin-level shinobi and former shinobi from Kurigakure no Sato, was grinning crazily. He had already taken out one of the genin. Now he just had to get that girl out of the way and deliver the final blow to the bridge builder. Maizu never saw the blonde boy until Naruto was in front of him. The boy was wearing a horrendous orange jumpsuit and a big smirk on his face, though the scrape of metal showed how much effort the kid was putting into blocking Maizu. Once again his claws were stopped by a kunai and the Chunin growled in frustration. "You're not going to hurt Sakura-chan or the old man." Naruto explained with some effort, "I'm going to stop you." "Big words coming from a shrimp like you," the man sneered, hiding himself inside the mist he had created. He was really confident of his abilities, after all you don't travel around with the demon of the mist without picking up some tips in the art of silent killing. "Nah, Naruto," said Sakura, her voice was trembling slightly, but the girl had taken a fighting stance and was holding a kunai on her hands. The boy moved his face to the side and smiled at her, and then he returned to his previous position. It had been a real luck that he stopped the man, but now things were getting dangerous. The lives of his friends were in jeopardy. The first thing he did was calm himself and tried to think the situation. He let his senses expand and sense his surroundings. The ground, the water, the sound of the leaves in the trees, the wind. Listen to the wind, smell what the wind brings to you. Naruto blinked a couple of times at that. Once again his inner voice had talked to him in the middle of a dangerous situation. Why in the name of all that was good and holy would he smell what the wind brings with it? It was absurd and weird. He could understand the part where he said to listen to the wind, but the other part with the smell in it. Well, that just showed once again that his inner spirit was kind of crazy. "I am not crazy, I am merely smarter than you smell it. It's the smell of a prey, of our prey, the smell of defeat and blood there." What happened next, Naruto couldn't explain at all. At least not completely. He had been listening to his inner voice, but at the same time his body was reacting to the words. He had let himself hear and smell, and he caught up with what the voice was trying to say. He could hear the whisper of clothes and footsteps. He could also smell the adrenaline, the excitement, the fear, and the blood of someone else. With a firm grip on the kunai and trusting entirely in his instincts, Naruto swiveled, lashed out with all the force he had in him, kunai still in hand, and felt the kunai and his hand came in contact with something soft that didn't fight the weapon. A choked gasp was all Naruto heard. He was looking directly into the eyes of his attacker. The metal claws had made it to Naruto's side, but Naruto's kunai had made it into the shinobi's neck. Time stood still while Naruto saw how the life left the other shinobi's eyes. His hand still held the kunai which was covered in blood, and the pain on his side was ignored. All that Naruto could do was stand there, dumbfounded and terrified. The fog that had been called by the former shinobi was dispersing, allowing those present to watch the scene unfold in front of them. Sasuke was standing up and taking off the chain from his leg. He had a slight bruise on his eye, but it was nothing to worry about. He then heard two gasps and lifting his head, he couldn't help the expression of shock that showed his face. Sakura had her eyes wide opened and was actually feeling a little sick and dizzy. Zabuza, who was fighting against Kakashi, smirked under his mask at the scene. The fog had dissipated and Kakashi was taking full advantage of that, and Zabuza knew that if the copy shinobi became serious, he would be in trouble. So, he took the opportunity that the blonde brat just gave to him. "It seems like one of your students has become a real shinobi," he said with an amused voice. Kakashi stopped his attack and allowed himself a moment of distraction. He turned around to see Naruto's bleeding hand and the body of an enemy falling at the boy's feet. "Naruto," Kakashi whispered, but he didn't have time to think of what had just happened. He needed to end his fight with Zabuza. He had to go over there and help Naruto and the others. If Zabuza had had one shinobi there, he could as well have another one that could attack at any moment. Naruto was trembling. He couldn't believe what he had just done. His eyes were fixated on his bloody hand and the corpse at his feet. "Naruto." said a voice behind him, but he didn't register from who it had come from. "Now, you are talking my language, kid," chuckled Zabuza, a hint of excitement in his words. Kakashi struck, but he wasn't prepared for the hand signs, and suddenly a prison of water surrounded him. Zabuza clicked his tongue. "Now, Kakashi, that was very rude of you. Let me fight with a little brat." Naruto looked over, still in shock at what had happened. Zabuza made another water clone and sent it directly to the boy. It was Sasuke who tackled Naruto to the ground to prevent the clone from hurting Naruto. The black-haired boy shot Naruto a glare. "Are you going to act like a statue or are you going to help? We have to free Kakashi-sensei." Zabuza shook his head. "It seems you haven't taught those brats of yours politeness." The tall opponent grinned humorlessly. "Shall I do that?" "No." Sasuke, grab Tazuna, Sakura, Naruto and run. "He is too much for you." Kakashi screamed from his water prison. Naruto was on the ground near the body of the mist shinobi. He looked over at his hands and then he looked up frantically, searching for the soul of the man. "How does it feel to have blood in your hands?" "Shut up. Shut up. Don't say anything." The sudden outburst from the blonde startled Zabuza, Kakashi and Sasuke. The three of them watched as Naruto clenched his fists and stood up, ignoring all of them and scanning the place with his eyes until they rested on a tree a few meters ahead. "You never said it would end up like this," Naruto mumbled, his voice trembling and full of emotions. The agonizing conflict in his eyes burned fiercely. I never meant to kill him." Naruto looked up to see a very serious Zabuza looking at him. "What did you expect? He was an enemy. It is your job." "How? How can you say that? He was your friend." Naruto exclaimed, clenching his fists. Kakashi frowned, wondering about Naruto's attitude. Not just because he seemed to be in a state of shock, but it sounded as if he was talking to someone else, just like always. Kakashi shook his head. It wasn't possible. Naruto was his student now. He was under Kakashi's care, and the copy nin would make sure all bad influence was kept away from him. "Friend?" Zabuza snorted, and then in a cold tone he continued. "He was nothing but a tool. Someone I picked up on the road to help me with this. From the beginning I knew that if I have to sacrifice him for the sake of this mission and of course for the sake of the money I would do it." There was a moment of silence in which Naruto's gaze locked, not on Zabuza's clone, but on the original one. He was trembling and an expression of incredulity crossed his face. He couldn't believe it, he didn't want to believe that the person he just killed was that. A tool. Nothing else, nothing more. "How can you say that? We are shinobi, it is not my fault that in your village they don't teach you the reality of this life," said Zabuza. The clone was fidgeting. The big sword was firm in his hand and the man was ready to attack. "This is the path of all shinobi. You get paid to do a mission. In this case my mission is to kill the old man over there and yours is to protect him. There is a conflict of interest, therefore there is conflict. And where there is conflict, one side or the other must give way. Or, in this case, your side will break." But those words Zabuza's clone launched forward, ready to strike with his Zanbatsu, but Naruto stood still, his eyes lowered and blonde bangs covering his eyes. With great speed he evaded the Reaper thrust meant to destroy him. The water clone was surprised, and when he served around he saw the blonde staring coldly. Naruto pulled out a silver scroll and unrolled it. Biting his thumb, he let some of his own blood drip onto the seal, and a katana appeared in a puff of smoke. "Naruto?" Sakura asked dumbfounded. Sasuke clenched his fists and was observing his teammate with a hint of respect and jealousy. "See? The taste of blood changes people," Zabuza said, smirking, "but you're still only a genin. Naruto, do not fight. Run." Kakashi tried to fight against his prison, while at the same time making sure Naruto could hear him. He was ignored and Naruto pulled his sword from the black sheath, and the blade shone brightly. "Sasuke," Naruto said in a voice very different from his usual cheerful one. The black-haired boy looked at him. "I've got an idea, would you like to help me out?" The last part was said with a tint of sarcasm and Sasuke smirked faintly. "What a stupid question, dope." Kakashi sat there incapable of freeing himself and saving his students. They were certainly fools to try to take down a man like Mamachi Zabuza, but at the same time Kakashi couldn't help but feel proud of them. This was their first mission and they were behaving as shinobi should. He was concerned about them and about Naruto in particular. After all, the blonde shinobi had just made his first kill. Kakashi knew from experience that the first one was always the hardest one. Kakashi focused on the blonde who was holding a katana. When did he get one? Kakashi asked himself while he saw the abrupt shift in Naruto's demeanor. And then, to the Jounin's complete surprise, Naruto started fighting Zabuza. Of course, Naruto wasn't as good as Zabuza. The man was part of the 7 shinobi swordsmen of the mist, there was no way Naruto could be as good. But, astonishingly, he wasn't bad either. He moved with grace. There wasn't any other word to describe it. He ducked, blocked and he struck as if he had been practicing a lot. "I was about to say that you did a good job with the brat, but for your expression I see on your face you weren't the one to teach him that." said Zabuza. "It is really a shame I have to kill him, he has a talent with the sword." The fight lasted a few more minutes. The clone was smiling, it had been a good fight, but he was getting tired of the game. He really wanted to finish the mission soon. "Finally, I thought we were going to keep this up longer," said Naruto with a big grin. The clone was utterly confused at that, but he didn't have time to reply. Naruto launched himself against the clone, slashing to the right with the katana. The man, anticipating the attack, moved his big weapon forward to protect himself. Naruto was expecting this, so as soon as their swords made contact the boy immediately kicked his opponent's midsection. The clone was sent staggering backwards and Naruto fell to the ground. That was all he needed to make a perfect opening for Sasuke, who arrived from behind and stabbed the clone with one of his kunai. The clone disappeared in an explosion of water, and now the two genin faced the original one and their impressed sensei. Events changed from that point. With great ability and wit, Sasuke and Naruto deceived Zabuza and freed their sensei. From that point on, Hada Kakashi showed not only Zabuza but his students as well why he was called Sharingan no Kakashi. However, just as Kakashi was ready to deliver the killing blow, a hunter nin bearing the mark of Kurigakure no Sato appeared on the scene, killing Zabuza immediately. "Thank you very much," said the hunter nin. Naruto narrowed his eyes at the newcomer. "I've been looking for a chance to kill Zabuza." Just then, the blonde genin realized something that he hadn't before. The presence that had been bothering him all this time, it was him. It was this shinobi. Naruto's hand went immediately to his katana. "Who are you?" asked Naruto, but it was Kakashi the one who replied. "For his clothes and that mask, he must be a hunter nin from Kurigakure no Sato." Kakashi replied with a placating gesture, "Am I right?" "Indeed, you seem to be well informed, Shinobi-san," said the mysterious newcomer. Naruto, nevertheless, didn't let go of his katana and was examining the shinobi intently. It was the first time in all these years that he saw a living being with spiritual energy. This boy appeared to be just the same age as him. There was a moment of silence in which Naruto moved towards the shinobi but was stopped by Kakashi. "What are you doing, Naruto? He is not an enemy." "But he killed Zabuza," Naruto said, looking over the falling shinobi and then back at the hunter nin. Naruto wanted to say more. He wanted to say that the boy up that tree was like him and not in the "I have a demon sealed in me" way. The young shinobi probably could sense him just like Naruto was sensing him. But he fell silent and stood there motionless. In a whirl of leaves and dust, the hunter nin disappeared from his spot in the tree to reappear beside Zabuza. "I thank you once again for your help, but your battle ends here and now," the boy all but whispered while picking up the body. "Now, I must dispose of this corpse. If you'll excuse me." The shinobi left and Naruto gritted his teeth, wanting to confirm his suspicions and yet unable to do so. Just then Sakura spoke. "Hey. Wait a minute, that hunter nin forgot the other one." Sakura said that with a trembling voice and she was eyeing Naruto carefully. The blonde genin flinched at the memory. He lowered his eyes and evaded his teammates' gazes. Just then he felt a hand on his head and saw Kakashi looking at him with a soft expression. "Good work back there, Naruto." Kakashi offered what seemed to be a gentle smile. Naruto shook his head and backed away. "No, two killed a man." Kakashi lowered his forehead protector, feeling a little dizzy. Ignoring the sensation, he tried to continue his conversation with Naruto, but the exhaustion won over and he folded unconscious to the ground. "He's fine. I would say he is just exhausted," said Sakura after a quick check on their sensei. None of them were medics, but the only one who seemed to know what to do was Sakura, so the boys let her be. "We should probably move. Tazuna-san, please show us the way to your place," said Sasuke, taking the situation under his control. "Very well, but what are you going to do with your sensei?" "Naruto and I can carry him." "Is your place far?" "Not very, just a few kilometers ahead." "Okay, then let's go." Sakura walked beside Tazuna while Sasuke went to pick up Kakashi. Naruto, however, went directly to the body of the mist shinobi. "Wait, we can't leave him here," said Naruto looking at the corpse. There was a moment of silence in which Tazuna and Sakura looked really uncomfortable while Sasuke seemed a little exasperated. "We can't stay here, there is a possibility that there are other shinobi around. Help me out with Kakashi-sensei and let's go." "No." Naruto's voice was firm and left no room for an argument. "We can't leave him here." "Yes we can, he is the enemy after all." "So, why should we care?" replied Sasuke. "So? He is still mean." He was human. Naruto trailed off, his nails biting into his palms, but no one could tell if it was in anger or something else. Sasuke sighed but understood what Naruto was trying to do. He didn't like it, so reluctantly he made his way towards the blonde genin. "So, you want to bury him or what?" the black-haired boy mumbled in an unusual soft voice. "Do you think it would be better if we burn him?" Sasuke looked at him confused and Naruto explained. "Well, he is a shinobi. Don't think it would be good if we buried him and the secrets from his village are known." Sasuke shrugged and nodded in approval of Naruto's plan. A moment passed with neither of them doing anything. Then Naruto scratched the back of his head sheepishly and turned around to look at Sasuke. So, you wouldn't mind using that fire jutsu you used once? I don't know any fire jutsu so. Sasuke rolled his eyes but nodded. Yeah, I can do it. But make it fast. Thank you Sasuke. Once the pyre was organized, Sasuke made a few hand seals and burned it with a shinobi placed carefully in it. Naruto still remembered the scared face of the plus soul he had seen after killing the man. It was struggling against a now broken chain connected to his chest and trying to breathe or move. When Naruto returned his attention to the soul had already disappeared. They waited until the fire wasn't any danger for the forest around and left the ashes to the wind. Naruto was carrying his sensei with the help of Sasuke. They had been walking for about 20 minutes when Naruto heard a terrifying scream and a growl. He turned his head to the source and felt rather than saw the presence of the hollow. After that only silence followed, and with remorse Naruto walked away from the scene. A few hours later they had arrived at the bridge builder's house where he lived with his daughter Tsunami and his grandson Inari. While the woman seemed nice and kind, the little kid seemed a little annoyed by the presence of the shinobi, but Team 7 said nothing of much consequence to them. Especially Naruto, who was still silent after the incident. It wasn't until Kakashi woke up and told them about Sakura's observation, about the other missed shinobi, and how the hunter Nin had ignored it and some other irregularities, that he concluded that Zabuza was still alive and that his team would need all the training Kakashi could give so that in a week's time they could face not only Zabuza but his mysterious helper. They had been training for the most part of the week trying an exercise that Naruto found tough initially. The tree walking exercise. Again and again, he fell, either from overuse of chakra or under application of it. His back ached from all the ignominious descents. The only positive thing about it was the bond he was starting to form with Sasuke. He rather died than admitted out loud really, but he was starting to like the Uchiha. He was really tired because of the training session that day, in which he had beat Sasuke and got the hang of the tree walking exercise. So, Naruto wasn't really sure if everything was a simple dream. He was in the middle of a forest, or so he thought. He could feel the wind around him, brushing his hair, and the leaves in the trees, whispering at the gentle passage of cool air. He wasn't wearing his usual jumpsuit, but the outfit he had seen Nana wear, only his was white instead of black. The attire of the Shinigami felt so right on him. Naruto glanced around him, but nothing made really sense. He had been in the forest near Tezuna's place, and it wasn't like the one he was in now. The trees and the fawn were a bit different. Just when he was about to ask if there was anyone there, a voice called out to him. "Naruto, what are you doing there? Come here." It was a voice he was used to hearing since he was 6 years old. It was the same voice that on many occasions had saved his life or had made him feel better. A blur and a movement on his right called the attention of the blonde. "Is that you?" he asked, though he felt a little dumb for asking such a question. "What? Still deaf to my calling? Still deaf to my name?" The voice sounded really amused, but at the same time disappointed, and Naruto lowered his face in shame. It was true that he was still deaf to the voice and that he couldn't make out the name of his own Zanpakuto. "And can you tell me? That's why you're here. But before I tell you, catch me if you can." This time those words sounded playful. Naruto glimpsed once again a black blur and the bushes before him moved. He could make the sound of running, and without a second thought he went after his Zanpakuto. Well, he had heard his voice and he could recognize it anywhere, he had never seen it before. Naruto raced over branches and some other bushes. Every time he thought he had finally caught up with the black blur, it only ran faster than him. Mocking him and telling him that the only reason he seemed to be closer was because he decided to slow himself down a little, not because Naruto was fast. A little infuriated and frustrated by this, Naruto decided to sprint faster than before. A bright light ahead made him frown in confusion, but before he couldn't stop or ponder over it, he exited the forest directly, standing in a strong and cold draft. Naruto stopped on the edge of a precipice. He was about to sigh in relief when he heard a chuckle, and the strong wind pushed him over the edge. "Ah!" Naruto screamed and sat up on the bed, his brow pouring with cold sweat and his eyes wide but unseeing. Beside him Sasuke stood up and was glaring at the blonde boy, and Naruto could hear inside his head someone laughing really loudly. "Don't you think it's a little early for your stupidity, dope?" exclaimed Sasuke, turning to the other side. "If I hear another word of that stupid Ramen nightmare, I swear." Sasuke's threat died as the black-haired boy fell asleep once again. Naruto was breathing hard and was scowling or trying to scowl at the being inside his head. "That wasn't funny. Of course, it wastes early, shouldn't you go out and train?" Naruto looked out the window that was wide open. The sky was still dark, but traces of light could be seen in the distance. His decision made, Naruto stood up and got dressed, grabbed his katana, and left the house before either of his teammates woke up. The walk to the place he was looking for had been uneventful and very monotonous. Ichimeru-jin had to admit that he was aching for some fun when he discovered the shadow trying to hide in one of the branches of a tree. He had left the beach and the sea a long time ago. Now, in front of him was a waterfall, and in there were 3 people fighting. One of them looked like a kid with sandy blonde hair. Or it was gray. Ichimaru shrugged, not really caring. The other 2 were grown-ups with black cloaks and red clouds printed on the fabric. Not a bad design, Ichimaru thought idly, resting against a tree trunk. He might as well watch. One of them was wielding a large crimson triple-bladed scythe, and the other had a mask over his face. There was an explosion and a blast of energy from the boy hit the 2 men. "Oh, so is that what you called a Jinchuriki?" Ichimaru inquired with a hint of curiosity on his tone. The man up in the tree turned his head slightly at the source of the voice. From that angle Ichimaru could see that the man was wearing an orange mask with swirls that end as an opening over the right eye and black shinobi gear. Ichimaru studied the man while the other faced the fight in front of them. "Yes, that is a Jinchuriki," the man answered dryly. "It is really powerful," Ichimaru commented, his grin growing wide on his face. The man turned and saw for the first time the mocking expression on Ichimaru's face. "I can feel his Reiatsu and it seems that he is in a very bad mood. They don't take it lightly when someone tries to attack and eventually capture them," answered the other. "Ah. A normal reaction," Ichimaru nodded as if agreeing with such an observation. "What are you doing here, Ichimaru?" My. Too serious for your own good, Madara-san." The man grunted and hopped from the tree, facing the silver-haired captain. "Do not call me that," said the man, anger evident in his voice. "I am known as Toby. So you can call me that. Why the secrecy? I thought that mask was enough. I don't want to take any chances of people knowing or discovering I am alive." "Technically, you're not," Jin replied nonchalantly. Madara directed his red eye to the man, and Ichimaru chuckled at the killing intent he could feel directed at him. "If you don't want to get discovered, you better control your mood." "There are people fighting that way," said Ichimaru, nodding his head towards the fight that was still taking place in the waterfall. Once again, "What are you doing here, Ichimaru? Your presence is bothersome." Ichimaru actually pouted, albeit mockingly, and crossed his arms in a childish way. "So rude, and here I was under Aizen Taichu's orders to know if you had made any progress." Hearing Aizen's name was enough to make Madara tense up. Ichimaru stopped his act and returned his always smiling face to Madara, knowing full well that Madara's attention was on him. "Aizen-sama sent you?" asked Madara, the honorific added on only because of Ichimaru's brief surge of warning Reiatsu. "Yes, he thought we should remind you of your mission and that your brothers and sisters are doing fine." If there was something Uchiha Madara hate was Ichimaru Jin and threats. How dare a being like that threaten him? Him, Uchiha Madara, the founder of the Uchiha clan and one of the, if not the most, powerful shinobi alive. Madara calmed himself and decided to not give Ichimaru, or Aizen for that matter, any clues about his real intentions. His loyalties needed to be hidden for the moment. "Of course, I know what my mission here is. Tell Aizen-sama that everything is going well." "Are you sure?" "Of course, I am sure. It's not easy and it may take more time, but rest assured that he will have what he came looking for." "It's good to hear that, Tobi-san." Ichimaru turned around and started walking away. "We will see each other another time. Have a nice day." Madara stood there for a moment. He was tempted to scream at the Shinigami, but he contained himself. He really disliked Ichimaru. The less contact he had with that captain the better. Ichimaru Jin decided that he would take another route to reunite with the rest of his subordinates. He was tired of the sea and the beach, and maybe if he entered the forest, he would get an opportunity to watch shinobis fight or to fight against a hollow. It was his lucky day. He had been walking for 3 hours when he felt it. A huge burst of Reiatsu whose source was unknown to him. The curious thing about it was that that huge Reiatsu was near another one, this one bearing the unmistakable taint of a hollow. When the captain of the 3rd Division arrived, he saw 3 things that impressed him and made him curious and less bored. The first was the high-level hollow that was playing with its victims. The second was a boy who had fallen to the ground and was looking wide-eyed at the scene unfolding in front of him. And the third one, the one that had caught Ichimaru's attention, was a boy. It was a blonde boy of no more than 12 years old. He had blue eyes and was wearing orange pants with a black t-shirt, and most intriguingly the boy had a sword. It was evident that he was tired and at the limit of his powers, but the Reiatsu coming from him was still incredibly powerful. The boy was really familiar, curiously familiar. That was probably why Ichimaru, without any hesitation, pulled out his Zanpakuto, and his simple command broke through the noises coming from the fight. "Shoot him dead, Shinsu. Friend or foe." Ever since he was a child, Naruto had gotten into the habit to train and work on his technique with the sword. It was something Orochi taught him from a very early age, and Naruto had never stopped doing ever since. As the morning grew older, Naruto found himself working not only on his Kenjutsu, but also on the control of his chakra and the tree-walking exercise. It was a moment of complete relaxation. The young boy was finally seeing the progress of his training and the roads opening right before his feet. Naruto was so engrossed in his Reiatsu training, he never noticed the newcomer who was observing him with a gleam of curiosity in his dark eyes. The hilt of his katana was soft, with a feather-like weight as he closed his eyes, releasing Ryatsu around him. A bright light engulfed the sword first, then his body, and, when he opened his eyes, those blue eyes were bright and almost magical. The newcomer held back his gasp, not wanting to break the moment, while also trying to gather as much information as he could about the blonde. Is the chakra? This was his first though soon he realized this was not how chakra felt. This was different, yet familiar, and red lights of alarm started blazing inside his head. I should kill him, he is a threat to Zabuza-sama's mission. Yes, I should kill him. However, the newcomer could not bring himself to act against the blonde, not yet. He stood there watching as the boy kept working out with the sword in the tree. Haku remembered the first time he saw him. The blonde genin had been so close to discovering the places where he was hiding from the others. The moment the blonde appeared, Haku knew there was something special about him, something different and yet familiar at the same time. Naruto slashed to the side and stopped before the blade came into contact with his target. He stood still for a moment before straightening up and sighing heavily. Oof, I am tired, he said, cleaning some of the sweat falling on his face. He turned around and found himself in front of a boy. The boy had long black hair and was wearing a blue kimono with a green obi on his waist. He was carrying a basket. His eyes were focused on Naruto. The blonde boy looked over at him with curiosity. Hi. Hello. Naruto felt a little uncomfortable under the steady regard the boy was giving him. Is there something wrong? The boy seemed to startle awake. He pulled his left hand from behind his back and smiled gently at Naruto. Sorry, I was just a little surprised at what you were doing, he said. Naruto grinned at that. I can only assume with that performance and the hit I ate on your forehead that you are a ninja, am I right? Yes, I am Uzumaki Naruto, and I am a genin of Konoha. Naruto smiled gently at the boy, stretching his right hand to the other boy. It's a pleasure, Uzumaki-san. My name is Haku. Both of them shook hands, sharing a smile. Just called me Naruto, Uzumaki sounds too formal for me. Very well, Naruto. Tell me, are you like a kenjutsu master or something? Me? Well, you could say that, said Naruto, chuckling a little. Haku merely lifted an eyebrow at that but didn't say anything else. So, what are you doing here? I am here to pick some medicinal herbs. Is that so? You know about medicinal herbs? Haku nodded. Naruto flashed him a big grin. Okay, I have finished my training routine, so do you mind if I help you out? No, of course not. For over an hour he and Haku spent their time collecting some herbs. The boy explained that they were for someone special to him who happened to be sick. For the very first time, Naruto realized just how easy it was to start a conversation with a stranger. The blonde remembered how hard it had been to make friends, more so when many parents were opposed to their children talking to him. A flash of memory crossed his blue eyes, those first years of his life in which having a friend had been almost impossible. How he thought he was destined to be alone until he started the ninja academy and met Shikamaru, Choji, Kiba and Shino. Until he finally got to know Sasuke. Naruto could not help but smile to Haku, who tilted his head, blinking away his own confusion at the change in the blonde. Tell me, Naruto, why do you train so hard? The question had come as a surprise to the young genin. He looked over at Haku, but the black-haired boy was concentrating on the herbs he had in his hand. Naruto turned his head to the side and contemplated the question before answering. I want to become strong. I want people back in my village to acknowledge me. Haku said nothing for a beat, but he was watching Naruto carefully. So, you fight because you want to be noticed. It's more complicated. How? Naruto turned around and looked directly in Haku's eyes. Haku couldn't help but recognize the same look he had a few years ago, before he met Zabuza and dedicated his life to serving him. It was a look of loneliness and rejection. I am not loved back in my village. I would dare to say that many of them want me dead, even some of the shinobi. Then why fight for a place like that? Why look for acknowledgement from people like that? Why not? Said Naruto, shrugging. Then turning to the side, he asked, what do you fight for, Haku? Haku stopped dead in his tracks, his eyes opened in surprise, and his whole body tensed up at that question. I don't understand what you are talking about, Naruto. Naruto snorted at that, and Haku's hand went directly to the pouch he kept on his back. I may look like a fool, but I am not one, said Naruto. Besides, I can feel you. Feel me? Haku sounded confused at that statement. Naruto narrowed his eyes at Haku, thinking of the possibilities of the young man not knowing what Naruto was talking about. He was about to reply when he felt a presence behind him. Shocked, Naruto jumped to the side. Where he had been moments before now lay a big claw attached to a huge monster. Well, that was unexpected, the creature sneered, his eyes gleaming with malice. Haku had an expression of pure surprise on his face while Naruto was staring at the hollow. How could he appear out of nowhere? I didn't feel him coming at all. And he is big and strong. Naruto's hand went immediately to his sword. He looked over at Haku and then at the hollow. You can see him too, Haku. Haku merely nodded his head while Naruto cursed mentally. Then, run. Leave. Now. Naruto launched an attack with his sword, startling not only Haku but the Hollow as well. However, Naruto didn't have his Zanpakuto, and his attack did nothing to the big creature who laughed out loud at the poor attempt. He punched Naruto and slammed him against a tree. "Today is my lucky day. Came here looking the source of such tasty Ryatsu and found two humans that are capable of see me." Once again the Hollow let out a laugh. This time it sounded less amused and more bloodthirsty. Naruto stood up groaning in pain, he looked to the side and saw that Haku was still there. The boy was sprawled on the ground and his eyes couldn't leave the monster in front of him. "I can't let him fight. Not this thing, but I don't have his Zanpakuto and Nana-chan told me not to use it unless she was near. What to do? Trashy, can't believe that it was you I felt," sneered the Hollow, launching another attack to Naruto who barely evaded it. "Haku, leave." Naruto tried again, lifting the katana right above his head while going straight to the Hollow. The creature scoffed, punching Naruto straight on his stomach. Naruto fell on his back, his body pulsating in pain, a painful groan left his lips as he sat up. For the first time, Haku shook himself from his stupor. He realized at this pace Naruto would be dead and he would be next. Without understanding completely what was happening, Haku got ready to fight and help Naruto. Naruto glared at the beast looming over him. How had he ended up in a situation like this one? Naruto stood up, ready to fight once again. He was trying to find a way out, but it always came to the same conclusion. Naruto didn't like the idea because the last time he tried to use one of the Kidu spells Nana-chan and Yoruichi had taught him, he ended up destroying Training Field 44 and in the hospital with a broken arm. "I have to use ID, just hope this goes better than the last time. I have played with you long enough, time to eat." Naruto stood up and, pointing at the Hollow in front of him, he gathered some of his Ryatsu, ready to launch the spell, when a voice behind him interrupted his chant. "Shoot him dead, Shinsu." Kazama Arashi was pacing around the room. Arashi had acted as promised, he informed the Central 46 of his findings and the existence of his nephew. The councilmen were not only surprised but rather concerned about this. Arashi had explained to them everything he deemed necessary, but he was not full, he could not reveal everything. The hall leading the council chamber was empty, there was a deafening silence accompanying his footsteps as he thought about his plans for the boy. Arashi knew that even if the Central 46 was reluctant to welcome the son of a traitor, Naruto was still a Kazama. They wouldn't dare to go against a clan as powerful as his. The door of the council chamber made a cracking noise. Kazama Arashi turned swiftly to see a single male approaching him. The man wore a single veil covering his face, everything except his eyes seemed to be hidden to the outside world. For a moment there was only silence, the man stared at Arashi with deep cold eyes until his voice broke into the hall. "We, the Central 46, have decided that your arguments are strong enough to bring the boy known as Uzumaki Naruto to Soul Society." The man's voice was full of authority, deep and dry, not allowing space for nonsense. Arashi stood there with all the dignity his position allowed him. "However, we do have some conditions." "Conditions?" asked Arashi before smiling ironically. "I guess that was necessary. Of course, for the well-being of Soul Society and my clan, I will hear your conditions. The boy, well, part Shinigami, is still part human. On top of that, he is the son of a traitor." The last part was said with such venom that Arashi had to contain himself to not let any emotion show in his face. "He will be trained and has to prove himself worthy by one of the other clans. Seeing as he is family to you and taking into consideration the role your clan plays in Soul Society, until the boy is deemed worthy he is not allowed to have contact with his clan." "What if he doesn't want to become a Shinigami?" asked Arashi. "You came here telling us that the boy was interested in his legacy," said the man with obvious annoyance. "But if he doesn't want to come here and pay the price, then he has to die. It's as simple as that." "Kazama-sama," Korea Jin greeted with a respectful bow. Arashi merely dismissed him, signaling to Jin to follow him. "The nerve of some people. Can you believe what they said to me?" started the young captain of the Kidu Corps. Korea looked curiously at his superior. "No sir." After a moment of silence Korea spoke again. "What did they say to you, sir? Did they deny you the mission?" "No, those old geezers wouldn't dare to say no to me. Not when I put up a good case and talked to them about the benefits of bringing my nephew to this place," Arashi commented offhandedly, striding rapidly through the streets of Sirte. "Then, if may I ask what happened to put you in such a foul mood, sir?" "Well, apparently if Naruto is found to be a threat or if he is found to be ready to follow in his father's steps, they decreed the boy to be killed." Korea widened his eyes in surprise and started thinking about what his captain had said. Arashi snarled again. "On top of that, I am not allowed to train or talk to Naruto in a familiar way until he is part of the Gate 13 and a seat member. That could take years." "If I may point out," said Korea tentatively, "I thought you were going to have more problems about that demon sealed inside him, that the fact that his father was a traitor." Arashi stopped and turned to glare at Korea coldly. The white-haired man lowered his gaze, embarrassed at what he had just said. Being the right-hand man of Arashi and the Fukatechu of the Kidu Corps, he knew how much Arashi had loved his brother. Traitor or not. Next time refrain from making such comments, Korea Fukatechu. My humblest apologies Taichu. It wasn't my intention. I know. That's why you're getting away with that statement earlier, Arashi said, resuming his walk. Either way, you are right. I thought they were going to put more of a fight due to the demon and not my brother. It seems that they trust Minato's and my own work to keep the demon at bay. Kazama Dono, we were waiting for you. Ice Nanao smiled when Korea and Arashi finally arrived at the 8th Division. The three of them made their way to the main office where Kairaku Shunsui lounged in his seat. Ah, Kazama Dono, such great timing. Kairaku offered a lopsided smile, lifting a small bottle of sake. Korea merely lifted an eyebrow and Arashi looked amusedly at the man. So, it seems. Arashi took a seat in front of Kairaku taking the cup that the man was offering to him. Both men ignored the glare that Nanao sent their way. I believe they have reached a verdict on your request, right? Yes, it seems like we can make our way to the shinobi world as soon as Ichimaru Taichi returns from his mission. Kairaku nodded and took a sip from the cup of sake. He let his eyes travel to where Nanao was looking at him and Kairaku smiled softly at her. What is going to happen to Naruto-kun? Arashi glanced at the 8th Division Taichu and could see real concern and affection directed at the blonde boy. To his nephew. For a moment Arashi wondered if he would have the same feelings for the boy or if he was going to despise his existence. After all, he was a living reminder that Minato had found happiness in a place other than the one he swore to protect since they were little kids. He is going to become a Shinigami, but his education and approbation is going to be watched closely by another of the 4 principal clans. Really? Do you know which clan it is going to be? Asked Kairaku completely surprised. Arashi revealed a faint smile before answering that particular question. Naruto was breathing hard, his whole body was aching from the pain of being kicked against a tree 3 times. Now with a single command and a really large Zanpakuto the big hollow had gone and he was looking at the strangest Shinigami he had seen so far. Now, that wasn't so difficult, was it? The man said, turning to face Naruto. The man was smiling at him and Naruto had to wonder how in hell that man saw anything at all with his eyes closed. Whoa, are you? It was Haku who spoke first. He was looking at the newcomer warily, gripping a kunai in his hand. Naruto stepped back, equally careful. He is a Shinigami. The man's smile was replaced with an expression of surprise, which gave Naruto the opportunity to see crimson eyes for a few seconds. The surprise was only momentary, the man's smile returned almost immediately. It seems like not only you can see me, but you know what I am. Ichimaru Jin put his Zanpakuto away and scratched the back of his head. It seems like you have met people with big mouths. Well, according to Nanao-chan Kairaku Jaidos have a big mouth, especially where women are involved, Naruto commented sitting himself on the ground. Shinigami? Is he dangerous? Haku asked Naruto in a soft voice. The blonde boy looked at Haku and then at Ichimaru who was grinning widely at him. How rude! Exclaimed the man, pretending to be insulted. And here I was helping some unfortunate souls. The comment only made Haku more wary and ready to attack and Naruto eyed the man with more suspicion. His attire was different from the one Kairaku Jai and Nanao-chan usually wore. The power emanating from the man was also making Naruto a little nervous. Suddenly Haku cursed and went to pick up the basket in which he had the medicinal herbs. He turned to look at Naruto sadly. In other circumstances, we could have been friends, Naruto-kun. But unfortunately, the next time we see each other, we are going to be enemies. And with those words the boy disappeared. Naruto sat there dumbfounded at the speed in which Haku left without giving him any chance to talk. He whirled around to see that the Shinigami was still behind him. The blonde frowned and noticed his sensei and Sasuke approaching. So, that's why Haku left, Naruto thought. He is a good person, isn't he? Yes, he is. But he is right. The next time we see each other we will be enemies. Then you better start hearing my Nemeso, you can honor an enemy like him. He had just finished his conversation with his Zanpakuto when Kakashi and Sasuke arrived. What the hell did you do, dope? Sasuke couldn't help the surprise on his voice as he stared around at the destruction of the clearing. Naruto wasn't really aware of his surroundings until Sasuke asked him that. When he glanced about he noticed that the place was literally ripped apart. The trees he had been training with had deep cuts and some were a little burned due to the force and concentration of Ryatsu he had used. The vegetation was as good as thrashed from the fight with the huge hollow's claws. Well, it's just, I was training, Naruto said, smiling sheepishly at his sensei and Sasuke, who gaped at him with incredulity. I don't think they believe you, boy, Ichimaru drawled in a sing-song voice. Naruto almost screamed before focusing his eyes on the Shinigami. He had forgotten about him, but the man was still there. What the hell are you trying, Naruto? Sasuke tilted his head, his black eyes looking with suspicion the blonde-haired boy standing in front of him. Naruto, how could you possibly destroy all these trees in training alone? Kakashi inquired. Sensei, you don't actually believe that Naruto the Uzumaki Naruto, prankster of Konohagakure did all of this, do you? Sasuke inquired, amused and disbelieving. Why not? You don't know how powerful Naruto trailed off at that last part. Sasuke merely raised an eyebrow, more amused than ever. It was evident that the young Uchiha didn't believe Naruto. Kakashi however was taking this very seriously. He studied Naruto and then at the space he had said he was training in, and his eyes focused once again in the blonde and then on the katana that he still had in his hand. Sasuke, go to the house and tell Sakura that we found Naruto so she can go to Tazuna and guard him, said Kakashi. Then go over the spot where we were a few minutes ago and start the exercise I told you about. Sasuke was about to protest but thought better of it. While he liked Naruto's company he hadn't become a shinobi to make friends. His training was more important than watching his sensei scold Naruto or cheering the blonde up after the scolding. When they were alone, Naruto was looking everywhere but at his sensei. Ichimaru had sat on a branch and his slitted gaze moved from the newcomer and the blonde boy that he now knew was called Naruto. Ichimaru's smile deepened. Such a great coincidence, looks exactly like you, Minato-kun. Tell me Naruto and tell me the truth, said Kakashi with a serious voice. Why did you leave the house knowing that a Jounin class shinobi is here and that he probably has some allies of Chunin or Jounin level with him? I was training, Naruto said, sullen at being rebuked. He doesn't look happy. So, is he a ninja like ya? Naruto glanced at the Shinigami who spoke and nodded his head. Kakashi frowned a little but continued. And did you really do all this? My, this is the first time I see a teacher scolding a student for training and doing a good job at it, commented Jin. Naruto was a little exasperated at the man who kept talking to him as if there wasn't anyone else there. Doesn't he know that I can't talk freely? Well, yeah. I was training with my katana and it went kind of out of control, muttered Naruto trying to sound casual about it. In the background he could hear not only the Shinigami's chuckle but his Zanpakuto's as well. He doesn't seem the type of person you can lie easily, does he? Oh, look. He is frowning in disapproval. Naruto lifted his gaze and he found himself looking directly in his sensei's one eye. Just as the Shinigami had said, Kakashi was looking at him in a disappointed and suspicious manner. Who gave you that katana, Naruto? The question was so unexpected that Naruto took a few seconds to recover before answering. Yuga-chan did. After I became a genin, he lied smoothly. He peeked at Kakashi and saw relief pass over his eye before he hid his emotions from Naruto's eyes once again. Okay, let's go. You are going to finish the tree walking exercise and be ready for tomorrow. I am sure that tomorrow we are going to have a hard day if Zabuza and his companion appear. Naruto started walking when he stopped and said, sorry sensei, I left my katana. I'll be right back. Not giving Kakashi enough time to respond, Naruto left the Jounin who gazed suspiciously at his student. Boy, fox-face Shinigami. Where are you? Hissed Naruto in a loud whisper. Ichimaru Jin landed behind him, pouting. Fox-face. How rude. Is this the way you thank the person who saved your lives? Naruto jumped about a meter in the air before he whirled around gripping the front of his shirt. What the hell? Why did you appear so suddenly? The man merely grinned at him but said nothing. Besides, I came here to thank you. So stop complaining. How nice of you. Jin trailed off and waited for Naruto to give him his name. Naruto. My name is Uzumaki Naruto, fox-face Shinigami, the boy smirked, finally taking in the man in front of him. Another Shinigami, another link to a world he yearned to meet. Naruto, huh? Well, I am Ichimaru Jin, Taichu of the 3rd Division of the Gate 13, Jin presented himself not before arching a single eyebrow at the boy, and I am certainly not Fox-Face. Taichu? So, you know Kairaku Jai. Of course, I know Kairaku Taichu. So, is he here? Did he come? Naruto asked, excited at the prospect of seeing Kairaku Jai and Nanao-chan once again. Jin observed the boy's reaction with interest. Nah, he had something of greater importance than this so he couldn't come. I am his replacement. Naruto appeared disappointed, but he recovered quickly and directed at Jin the most astonishing smile that anyone, besides Ranjiku, had given to him. Oh, well. It's okay. I guess it's good to meet new people from Soul Society. Naruto was about to say something else, but Jin nodded his head and put a finger over the boy's mouth. Naruto frowned, confused. Jin studied him seriously, the expression looked alien on the man. Someone is here and he is watching you Naruto-kun, he said, and Naruto opened his eyes. Do not worry. I think it is just your sensei. They don't seem to trust you that much, eh? Naruto lowered his eyes as a pang of sadness hit him hard. Jin examined the boy and seeing the mood he was now in, the Taichu of the 3rd Division took the opportunity to try and clear his suspicions. It was good meeting you and saving your life, the Taichu of the 3rd Division bowed his head to the blonde, his lips curling up in an easy smile. I would tell Kairaku Taichu that you said hi. Take care, Naruto-kun. I would hate the son of Minato-kun dying before time. Naruto stood there with his eyes wide opened, shocked at the name Ichimeru-jin had tossed out so casually. Minato, was that my father's name? Did he know him? Naruto's hand went immediately to his necklace and a small smile grew on his face. He had just made 2 new friends, one of them another captain from Soul Society, and probably knew about his father. As soon as he saw Kairakuji again, he was going to ask him about this Ichimeru-jin. Kakashi stood there on the tree even after Naruto left with his katana. He had watched his boy stood there for a good 2 minutes, talking to no one. Kakashi sighed, tired of the entire situation. This would be easier if your son hadn't decided to become a shinobi and follow that absurd dream of becoming Hokage, sensei. Naruto woke up to the sound of screaming and crying. After pulling his clothes on, he grabbed his katana and jumped out from the window. Once he landed, his eyes hardened and his whole body tensed up at the scene. Inari was on the ground with blood and tears on his face. He was obviously terrified and he was watching while 2 guys pinned his mother to the ground and were trying to take her clothes off. Naruto's burst of chakra mixed with Reiatsu called the 2 guys' attention. What do you think you are doing? Naruto roared with his hand grasping the hilt of his katana. Inari gasped in fear at the blonde shinobi's transformation. The 2 bandits from Gatu looked at him, half consumed with fear and the other half filled with annoyance at being interrupted. "Kill the brat, while I take care of her," one of the men tried to command with just a hint of fear in his voice. The nerve of these idiots, "You have to do something Naruto, you have to say number." Naruto didn't bother to listen to his Zanpakuto. He disappeared and reappeared in front of one of the men, sending him flying with a vicious kick to the stomach. The other guy didn't have time to react when a fist connected with his face. Naruto helped Tsunami stand up, the woman had tears in her eyes but was gazing at Naruto with gratitude. "Inari." The little boy stared at Naruto with wide tearful eyes, stunned by the change in the blonde's demeanor. Naruto commanded, "Take your mother inside and help her out. I'll be right back." Naruto turned to where the 2 guys were. One of them was ready to attack Naruto, but he never managed to locate his opponent since Naruto moved at an unnatural speed. The blade of his katana went through the enemy's gut. Sliding his sword out, Naruto turned and saw the other man looking at him, petrified, before he sprinted away. Naruto followed, but an explosion of Reiatsu called his attention. He knew that Reiatsu because he had spent a good portion of his morning near the source. Haku. And where Haku was, his teammates and Kakashi-sensei should be as well. "It seems like the time has come for you to finally fight seriously." "Yeah, you sound excited. Are you going to finally let me know you? I have wanted that since the first time, Naruto. You just have to say my name." Sasuke was on the ground trying to breathe properly, but the task was very difficult. Whatever the shinobi in front of him was doing, it was working very well. At first Sasuke thought it was a genjutsu to make him feel as if there wasn't enough air, but it wasn't. He had tried to disperse it, but failed to remove the odd pressure on his chest. If he had his Sharingan, this guy wouldn't have the opportunity to hide himself behind some mirrors made of ice. "You are a good shinobi, Uchiha-san," the boy commented from inside one of the mirrors. The pressure started to fade a little, and Sasuke was able to stand up once again. The Uchiha licked his lips, breathing steadily. "However, you are useless against a person like me." "Humph," says the coward that hides behind some trick, Sasuke scoffed, pulling out a kunai. "You talk big and all, but if it wasn't because of this trick of yours, I could have kicked your ass easily." Haku let out a chuckle at that statement, which only made Sasuke angrier and more frustrated. Sasuke sent his kunai flying, but it didn't work against the mirrors. The figure of Haku kept leaping from one mirror to another. "No, Uchiha-san. You are not my match," Haku whispered only for the Uchiha to hear him. He flung a senbon Sasuke's way and it hit the target. Sasuke let out a growl before he tried his fire jutsu, to no avail. Your teammate, however, may be a more interesting opponent. Where is Uzumaki Naruto? That was it. The trigger Uchiha Sasuke needed. How dare that commenter tell him that Uzumaki Naruto was more of a challenge. He was going to show him that no one was allowed to despise an Uchiha. Sasuke grabbed another kunai and launched himself against one of the mirrors. He tried to cover the kunai with his chakra. In that way, he gave the kunai enough strength to probably break one of the mirrors, but again, he failed. He saw Haku in time to prevent more of those senbon from landing on target. Haku watched with interest as Uchiha Sasuke started fighting more aggressively, but not with less talent. Haku decided that it was time to end the fight. He didn't want to kill the boy, so it was better if he just incapacitated him. Haku positioned himself in one of the mirrors and sent a handful of senbon Sasuke's way. Then while the boy was distracted with the senbon, he emerged from the mirrors and went to kick Sasuke on the stomach but was stopped by a hand that appeared out of nowhere. Sasuke's eyes opened in surprise as the sudden halt in the battle, and he was even more surprised to see that the hand belonged to none other than his teammate. "Sorry, I hope I wasn't interrupting anything important, Sasuke." "Haku," said Naruto, grinning hugely at the two boys. Sasuke's fists clenched in anger at the appearance of the blonde boy, but Haku was pleased. He had wanted to fight the boy since the first time they met and now it was his opportunity. "What the hell are you doing here, Naruto?" exclaimed a very heated Sasuke. Naruto turned to his teammate in confusion at the anger he heard in Sasuke's tone. "I came here to save you," Naruto replied, which only made the Uchiha more infuriated. Sasuke shoved Naruto out of the way and got ready to fight Haku. "I don't need your help, dope, now disappear and let me fight." "Dodge." And Naruto did, dodging just in time from the flung senbon, but his friend didn't have that luck. A fistful of senbon ended up directly in his arms and two of them were embedded in his chest. Sasuke groaned in pain and Naruto peered at the Uchiha who looked like a pincushion. "You shouldn't distract yourself in the middle of a fight that may cost you and your friends their lives," Haku remarked, speeding up his transition between mirrors while throwing senbon. Naruto barely evaded them, but Sasuke was a little slow in his movements and some of them hit him. "Sasuke." Naruto dashed over to Sasuke, but a kick to the face sent him crashing into one of the mirrors. "I told you not to distract yourself, Naruto-kun." This time Naruto scrambled upright before Haku had the opportunity to kick him. Naruto rolled to the side and recovered the katana that had fallen when he had arrived to save Sasuke. Haku pulled out a kunai and both weapons clashed together with metallic scrapes and sparks. Sakura was really worried. She had been there beside the bridge builder since Sasuke-kun and that strange shinobi had started fighting and that dome had formed around them. Then, when Kakashi-sensei went to help Sasuke-kun the Jounin stopped him and they both started to fight. Her mission was to guard the bridge builder, but she was dead worried about Sasuke-kun. If only Naruto had woken up Irlyarug, he is so useless. Every time she sensed a sound or a tendril of chakra, Sakura got more and more nervous. When she felt pressure from inside the dome, she considered moving towards it to help out, mission or not. But she stayed there beside Tazuna, trembling a little and begging whoever could hear her to protect her love interest. A few moments passed and then the same pressure was felt, along with another the two pressures were enough to make her tremble. Behind her Tazuna was already on the ground. What the hell is this kid? Is this some kind of ninja trick?" asked the old man. Don't know," Sakura was trying to sound strong, but her voice trembled a little. "Tazuna-san, my teammate he needs my help." Tazuna looked at the girl, wide-eyed with fear, before gulping and nodding. "Very well, let's go." Tazuna and Sakura made their way very slowly through the mist that had been formed earlier in the fight to the dome. The clash of metal could be heard and when Sakura was near enough to recognize something, she saw a shadow on the ground and two blurs fighting. "What the hell? Naruto. Did Naruto come? Is Sasuke-kun fighting with that guy? What's happening?" "I can't see anything," Tazuna whispered. Sakura nodded to herself before looking at the old man. "I don't know, it seems Naruto came to help and got knocked out. I am going to pull him out while he is an idiot, he is my teammate and can be hurt even further if Sasuke-kun or that guy hit him. Tazuna-san, please wait here." And with that said Sakura ducked inside the dome. Haku had a theory about Naruto. He was more that met the eye, that much was evident. His speed, movements, and the way he worked with the katana said to the young man that Naruto had been working his ass off training and improving his abilities. It was kind of nostalgic for the young man. To see someone like him grow so much was quite remarkable. Haku smiled behind his mask and decided to enjoy the fight. For his part, Naruto was thinking the same. He had learned from a very young age that he was different and Uruchi-chan has always told him as much. Now, to fight a human who could sense and use Reiatsu just like him, a person whose suffering was evident from the expression in those clear eyes and who was working hard to protect someone else, told Naruto he was not alone. The blonde-haired shinobi smirked, he decided he would enjoy the fight using everything he had learned from Uruchi and Kairaku, it was only fair. Both boys were too absorbed by the fight that they never noticed the pink-haired girl that crept towards the unconscious Sasuke. The fight grew more and more violent as the two of them became comfortable with the other's fighting style. Naruto was starting to use his knowledge of Reiatsu to immobilize Haku, but the black-haired boy was doing the same. Naruto wondered, not for the first time, when Haku had learned to use his Reiatsu so well. Naruto gripped his katana and drew a deadly arc, slicing down the right, but the boy was expecting that and ducked into one of the mirrors. "This has been a good fight, Naruto-kun. But I am afraid that I have to end it soon." Haku felt the sudden fluctuation in Zabuza's chakra. "That's too bad, I was enjoying myself." Naruto commented with a fierce smile. Haku wanted to return it, but Naruto couldn't see behind the mask. Haku pulled out 5 senbon with his right hand and a kunai with the left. He threw the weapons. 3 senbon hit the target, 2 missed, and the kunai sliced past Naruto. The boy flinched at the feel of thick needles stabbing into his flesh. He was about to rip them out when a gasp of surprise and a scream of pain startled him. Naruto turned to see Sakura with the kunai in her back and Sasuke, half conscious, cradling the girl. "Sakura." Sasuke's voice was full of pain. Time stood still the instant Naruto saw his two teammates on the ground, one of them with a kunai in her back. Naruto. Once again he was in the forest, but this time it was a little different. The weather was wild, a thunderstorm with strong winds was rocking the inner world. Naruto looked in front of him and saw himself at the foot of an immense mountain. There was an entrance to a cave, and the space between the forest and the cave was desolate. A small burst of power came from it. Naruto was about to make his way there when a familiar voice stopped him. "He isn't there, Tenant. The Kyuubi. Yes, your anger is making the seal weak. Now Naruto, you have to decide." Naruto whirled around, trying to find the owner of the voice. A deep growl interrupted his search, and Naruto turned to the cave that was emanating red chakra. "Do you feel it, kid? The power." Just like the first time, the voice had a mean edge to it. It made Naruto's head throb in pain. Come to me and I will give you what you need." Naruto hesitated for a moment, but he turned to the forest instead, ignoring the red chakra that was starting to touch his feet. "My friends are in trouble. I let them get hurt. I want to protect them. I don't see how is that my problem or even the hairballs over there. However, I did choose you as my owner, so you better use my power well, kid. I can take away whenever I want to, make me proud. Now scream my name." An orange cloud of Reiatsu surrounded Naruto and the katana he was still holding with his right hand. Haku watched, as amazed by the scene as Sasuke was watching with blurred vision. "Make our enemies bleed, Ryujin Rakus." The cloud of Reiatsu exploded and made Haku and Sasuke cover their eyes. The mirrors of ice disappeared with the strength of the wind coming from Naruto. Haku was launched to the other side and his mask fell broken to the ground. Sakura and Sasuke also were thrown away from the strength of the wind. Sasuke made sure that Sakura was alright before he returned his eyes to Naruto. The blonde boy stood there with the wind whipping at his clothes and his hair, that strange chakra surrounding him and creating a weird pressure, just like the one Haku had when he fought Sasuke. Around him Sasuke could see small silver lights in the form of thunderbolts. Then Sasuke noticed something different. The katana wasn't a katana anymore, and Sasuke felt a pang of jealousy at the surge of power that he could feel in Naruto. The sword had changed its form. It wasn't as tall as Naruto, but probably it would be around the height of his shoulders. The blade was crimson, while the hilt was silver and black. Curiously, the hilt was in the form of a dragon, from whose mouth came the red blade, and was a perfect image of a dragon belching flames. Naruto goggled at his released Zanpakuto. It was incredible. And the power he felt pulsing through him was just as good. He looked at the red blade and smiled, before turning his attention to Haku and to Sasuke. "Sasuke, help Sakura. I am going to fight this guy and then help Kakashi-sensei." Naruto disappeared before Sasuke could say anything. "Wow. If that is the idiot of the class, I don't want to imagine how the rest is like," said Tazuna, who then returned his attention to Sakura. Sasuke clenched his fist and saw the old man trying to cure his teammate. Haku stood up in time to stop Naruto's attack with his new blade. The blonde was no longer smiling or enjoying the fight. Haku had hurt the people he cared about, and Naruto was really angry at that. Haku was thrown backwards, and the boy felt blood dripping from his face. "How? I didn't let the blade touch me," Haku thought, touching his face and noticing the cut in the blood. But Haku didn't have time to wonder because Naruto once again attacked. The boy formed some hand seals rapidly, and a water dragon appeared to assault Naruto. The blonde swung his Zanpakuto in a semicircle and beheaded the water dragon, which splashed to the ground. Haku moved once again and threw Senbon, and he opened his eyes in surprise when the Senbon touched an invisible barrier and bounced off. "It seems like Ryujin uses wind," Naruto mumbled impressed, "and this time he used it to protect me." Naruto darted around with Shunpo and surprised Haku from behind. Haku felt the force of the kick on his lower back and he was sent flying against the bridge rail. He stood there panting, too tired and hurt to move. He felt Naruto behind him again and Haku couldn't help the smile that appeared on his face. He turned around and locked his gaze on Naruto. Naruto blinked, confused at that beatific expression. "You've won, Naruto-kun." Haku sat and bowed his head. "I can't keep fighting against you. Please kill me." What? Naruto stammered, shocked at those words. "Why would I kill you? You won." When the reason did not seem to be enough to sway Naruto, Haku continued, "I almost killed your teammates." "Those are not reasons to kill you," Naruto finally said, confusion still evident in his face. Haku lifted his head, surprised by the statement. Naruto was looking uncomfortable at the situation, but he kept talking. I regret what you did and that we ended up on different sides on this fight. You were right. Under other circumstances we could have been friends." Naruto smiled faintly before continuing, "We still can be friends." Haku was silent for a moment before saying, "To only live with one purpose. To serve Zabuza-sama. I only train and try to become strong to protect him because he is an important person to me. My only important person. Without that purpose I am nothing. Please, Naruto-kun. If my friendship means something to you, kill me." Naruto kneeled in front of Haku and looked directly in the boy's eyes. You can do it. What the hell? You're asking me to kill a human being, a friend. I did not, he did. Well, I am not about to kill him just because he asked. Haku, there is still another way. You have Reiatsu. Maybe I can teach you how to use it and that way you can keep protecting Zabuza, Naruto tried to reason, his heart hammering against his chest at the thought of having to kill someone like Haku. Reiatsu? What's that? Haku was looking perplexed at the word, he tasted it while glancing curiously at the blonde. That is the power you have and that you sense in me. It is called Reiatsu, it is also the force that allowed you to see ghosts and hollows. You must have a lot of it because it is really weird for humans to be able to see anything at all. You mean that our powers are called Reiatsu? Naruto nodded, Haku had hope in his eyes when he looked at Naruto. And you said that you could teach me about it and I can. Yes. Haku nodded and stood up with Naruto's assistance. I think I can. Haku trailed off and his expression changed into one of fear. He swallowed. Sorry, Naruto-kun. Naruto wasn't fast enough to grab the black-haired boy who disappeared. He was about to search for him when a sound called his attention. It was a very strange and loud sound. Naruto felt his sensei's chakra and then Haku's presence. Fear stabbed his spine and Naruto ran towards the place he thought Kakashi-sensei and Zabuza were fighting. While he was running the mist started to fade away and Naruto sprinted faster. Haku? Naruto's scream broke the silence. He then noticed that the silence stemmed from Kakashi, Zabuza and Haku. Kakashi's arm went through Haku's chest and the boy had a sad smile on his face. Kakashi pulled his hand out and let the body of Haku collapse. Naruto ran towards the three and tossed his Zanpakuto aside try to hold Haku. Zabuza was too shocked to move or even said anything. Haku? Don't feel sad, nah Naruto-kun. Haku coughed up blood and Naruto saw with growing horror the hole in the boy's chest. I did what I was meant to protect Zabuza-sama. And with a final choking gasp Haku died. Naruto sat there without reacting, just like Zabuza, while Kakashi peered at the two boys oddly. How touching. I am a little sad that the little piece of scum died before I could make him pay for what he did to my arm. Atu had arrived, at least 200 men were behind him. The man had a satisfied smile on his face. Zabuza looked at the man with narrowed eyes. Lamachi Zabuza, the demon of the mist, mocked Gatu. Trash is what you are. You couldn't take care of 3 brats and their sensei or even the old man. Idiotic boy had to die in a situation like this, Zabuza mumbled. Naruto lifted his eyes to Zabuza's face and a burst of Reiatsu surprised the man. He was having problems breathing. He died for you? The only thing he thought about was becoming strong so he could protect you. You were important to him and that is how you repay him. Was he just another of your tools? Don't you have any feelings? Yelled Naruto, tears streaming down his face. He was happy when I said that I could teach him something so he could become stronger and all for what? For a man that didn't even like him. Zabuza ignored him but a lonely tear rolled down his face. He looked at Naruto and then at Kakashi. It seems like we are no longer enemies, Kakashi, the man said, then directed his gaze at Gato. Kid, do you have a kunai? Naruto seemed puzzled by the request but threw the kunai to Zabuza anyway. The shinobi inclined his head once and charged forward at Gato, slashing the kunai across his throat, killing him immediately. It took a few seconds before the servants and the rogues around Gato reacted and tried to kill Zabuza. But the Jounin of the Mist honored his nickname. He became a demon, slashing here and there across whoever came close enough. Suddenly he heard metal clash behind him and when he swerved to avoid an attack, he saw the blonde kid fighting at his side. Haku saved you because he wanted you alive was all Naruto said before he swung his blade once more. Beside them Kakashi had joined the fight so he could protect his student. His thoughts were concentrated on the fight, though part of him wondered where Naruto had found that sword. Just when the fight was about to turn on Kakashi, Naruto and Zabuza, Inari and the rest of the town arrived. Naruto smiled at Inari before forcing Reiatsu into the blade and stabbed it in the ground. A strong whirlwind whipped over their enemies, sending them flying into the river or to the other side. Uzumaki Naruto stood satisfied, his lips curled into a sad smile as his hand grasped the Zanpakuto with force. He would seek out Haku's soul, with his Zanpakuto now awakened he knew he could be capable of the soul burial ritual. He had to, he didn't want Haku to suffer a horrible fate at the hands of a lucky hollow. Naruto never made it on time, the moment he stepped forward his world went black and Naruto knew no more. 2 days later, Naruto woke up alone. It didn't take too long for the blonde to get up to date with the events after he went unconscious. Sasuke and Sakura had recovered just fine and the rest of Gato's men had been either badly injured, killed, or scared off from the land of the waves for good. Now the work on the bridge was over and Team 7 was about to go back to Konoha. After having eaten some and against his sensei's advice to rest some more, Naruto took off to the bridge. In his mind and heart, he was still guilty for what had happened to Haku, he needed to locate the young man and make sure he was okay. But his search was fruitless, and after more than an hour all Naruto could do was paid his respects to the grave. He was a good boy. Naruto turned to see Momochi's Zabuza behind him. The man had his arms covered in bandages and he had been allowed to stay at Tsunami's place until his arms recover. You and he became friends so fast. How did that happen? We had similar lives was all Naruto said. I see. Well, you shouldn't feel guilty about his death. If there was one thing I learned about Haku, it was that he always did what his heart told him to do, Zabuza said, then added sadly, I wish his heart hadn't told him to stand up between me and Kakashi. The waves lapped below the bridge. The ever-present sea breeze stirred up and blew the scent of salt over Naruto. You and Haku, what's the similarity? You can see them too. Zabuza asked all of a sudden. Naruto turned around to see a smirking Zabuza. Naruto's face must have given away the answer. Zabuza nodded curtly. Thought so. Do not worry, your secret is safe with me, it's not as if someone is going to believe me. What are you going to do after you heal? Naruto finally asked, trying to change the topic. Well, try to become stronger and look for another job. Whatever I want. Zabuza swiveled about and started walking away. Become strong, kid, and keep practicing those skills of yours with the sword because next time I am not going easy on you. Naruto laughed at that and then he said his last goodbye to Haku's grave, promising the boy to find him through Kairaku-ji and Nana-chan as soon as he arrived in Konoha. Back at Tazuna's place, Sasuke was on the bathroom looking down and recalling recent events. He was frustrated and angered by Naruto's performance and the fact that Sasuke had made a fool of himself. Mainly the Uchiha thought about Naruto's sudden burst of power and his thoughts always ended up with one item. Naruto's new sword. He would have that sword. He would get that power. Even if he had to steal it. When Sasuke lifted his gaze to the mirror in front of him, his eyes were red with two black tomos and a dark smile adorned his face. What if Hokage Naruto was sealed inside Bleach? Thanks for watching my video till the end. If you enjoy this content, then do consider subscribing to my channel and leave a like if you guys need the next part, comment down, and thanks for watching the video and see you guys in the next video.